Yeah, yeah, yeah. Woohoo! Here we go. We do the. I don't like too many bitches, so I keep it close. I like way too many places, so I'm coast to coast. They say that you do too much, I say I do the most. It's that TRIX, I eat a fucking goat, yo. Trixie on some other shit, trial of the golden witch.
Holding this bitch hostage in the mosh pit. Drop this flow in your head, get knocked in, locked in, targets in the scope. Gonna blow, gonna blow.
No, I don't mean to peel your skin back, but the click clack of the hot hat like a gat blasting on the back skin of the classic trap shit. And I sit here maxing, then feel scared when I'm relaxing. Slipping through a slip knot when I need action. I'm a silicone, never calmly on a mic, get rough like a rough zombie. I'm probably flying my diligent escape plan in a grave and by the cave and waving to the day one fans and the whole trumpets. I made it my mistake. Wait, I'm a killer cake, I'm a fake, I'm a sing, I'm a shake like way too much. And so I'ma make a fuss, I'ma make it up. I'm invincible, I'm victorious, and it's glorious. I don't like too many bitches, so I keep it
Y'all hear
close.
my microphone
I like
in here?
way too many places, so I coast to coast. They say that you do too much, I said I do the most. It's a TRIX, I eat a fucking ghost. Show up in a rap geek since around when I was 9. When Missy got a freak on, see request live, Timberland, Ludacris, Lil Kim on the vibe, was a lady mama live way before I had a job. The real Slim Shady was like my baby book. I learned more than hooks and the nooks and crannies up in my brain filled up with the flow from Forgot About Dre. This is when Jay-Z and DMX were going crazy and Kanye West was a little baby.
And I can recite the whole poke rap. I still cop to that, for real.
Linkin Park taught me breath control. Rest in peace, my hero, Chester.
I don't like too many bitches, so I keep it close.
I like way too many places, so I'm coast to coast. They say that you do too much, I said I do the most. They said TRIX, I eat a fucking ghost, yo. I don't like too many bitches, so I keep it close. I like way too many places, so I'm coast to coast. They say that you do too much, I said I do the most. They said TRIX, I eat a fucking ghost. They said TRIX, I eat a fucking ghost. They said TRIX, I eat a fucking ghost. Yo!
I gotta learn how to sign language TRIXIE, the fucking goat, for if I ever do that live. Hey, everybody, whether you're a long-time viewer, a brand newcomer, or whatever, welcome. I'm Trixie the Golden Witch, the artist formerly known as Digibro, or Tycall Ultimate, or what's another name that maybe some people actually would have seen me by? Se Dice Vicente, Metal Sonic 700. I've been struggling with the fact that I had a big pop of popularity in 2016. And for most people, that's when I came into existence in their minds. And so my life is basically whatever was happening in 2016 till now. Makes things weird for me because that's such a specific moment in my life and my internet existence that's been going for over 20 years, you know. I've been thinking like I want to be able to explain myself in a way where just everybody would I'm adapting the AKA's Jimmy style. Yes, indeed. He's definitely influenced my decision to keep doing it because you know, I get jealous of how long his string of AKAs is. As a rapper, you need to have a lot of AKAs. But it can't all just be shit you made up either. You know, it's got to be some shit that other people have called you by. But, you know, I have been known as those things. Those AKAs I just said, those are things people have known me as for one reason or another on the internet over the years. And so I want to get into it. I want to profile myself because there's not really a complete profile of me on the internet. There's no one video, no one article about me. Most of the stuff that was written about me, again, was all written in 2016 and it's never been updated. And it was just based on whatever was known about me at the time. So I feel like just, you know, I guess in my head, I've been like writing my own autobiography my whole life, you know? So I get so obsessed on all the little details of like telling my story. This isn't going to be that. I just want a simple profile, but one that isn't missing anything. You know, one that like that accounts for everything I was doing at each of these periods in time, because I there was never a time where everything I was doing was popular. You know, it was always kind of very scattershot. Like every once in a while, I had something pop. There's some room reverb. Well, I am in a very empty office. How bad does it sound though? I guess I should just check for myself what it sounds like. Yeah, make sure that it sounds like not shit. Very empty office. Oh, that sounds like total shit. That can't be the right microphone at all. Y'all told me this sounded good. Are you not used to the sound of my good microphone? Hold on. Are you not used to the sound? Yeah, okay. So scared me for a second there that my microphone was broken or something. Most of us don't stream. Well, you listen to my stream. You should know what I sound like. Good if you're on a phone speaker. That is really funny, actually, that it still sounds good on a phone speaker. I'm more concerned about the lossiness. Like with that thing, there's so much distance between me and it that more of the information is lost. And so it'll dip in and out more. And so on the recording, oh God, I'm seeing an infinity of myself appearing. Okay, enough of that. Anyways. Definitely not used to the sound of your good mic. Should be. It's all the time. I'm always using this fucking thing. Okay. Shout out Manny Muskets, by the way, who was on a stream just last weekend. It was a fucking hilarious stream. Manny Muskets, one of my friends, a stand-up comedian in Philadelphia. If you ever see the name, if you're in Philadelphia and you go to stand up at dive bars and you see the name Manny Muskets, go to that one. I guarantee it'll be funny. All right. And if I'm wrong, we will have to note in this profile that I am a known liar as well. You know, like in order to create a proper profile, you have to be like, and then she said she was going to do this, but that never happened. No, I don't actually know how many of those things I can remember. That'll probably be up to other people to amend the profile with, reminding me all the times, all the things that I said would happen but didn't. Okay. So, like, where do I begin? I'm best known as an anime YouTuber because of, I mean, if you just go to my channel, sort by most popular, like, overwhelmingly more people know me because of these videos right here. All these that have 1 million views. Not even really as much the stuff underneath this. Anything with 1 million views or more. I'm known for this Cowboy Bebop video that was a major inspiration for Super Eye Patch Wolf. It's kind of why he decided to take that like slow storytelling approach to making videos. I have How to Recognize a Great Anime in Just One Episode and a Terrible Anime in Just One Episode, which are by far, I mean, this one is still the most successful video that I've ever made. To this day, it still gets more views than stuff I make now. It's always getting views. And it's basically just my diatribe about why the 3-episode test is not necessary. I just wanted to free people from the trap of thinking that they have to give something 3 whole episodes to decide that it sucks. And it's not to say that nothing can ever get better as it goes. Just that you don't need to hold yourself to that. Like, you really don't have to. There's a lot of fucking stuff out there. This is probably the biggest effect I've had on anime culture, is to make people a little bit more relaxed about dropping shows and appreciate just how much is out there. I have rants called things like You Do Not Have Time. I've done a lot of rants about the subject of, managing your time wisely and not wasting it by watching bullshit just because it's being hyped by other people, even though you're hating it, and you're just going to get angry at it, and you're just going to have an anti-hype, mentality in your mind, when you could just be enjoying good things instead. Most people just can't identify good things. Most people don't even know what they would like. They wouldn't know that they were liking something if they were in the middle of doing it. I think that's why it's so hard for people to just enjoy shit. They can't even tell that they're enjoying shit.
until like, you know, maybe it takes like a certain level of like, oh my God, am I having fun? You know, you see it like coming over you like in a movie where your whole body's getting like covered in glowy shit, you know, it just like rubs over you. Fun is happening. What's this? Yeah, Jane says, thank you for that, Trixie. You helped me with dropping that Russian girl anime that you also dropped in the first 5 minutes. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't take long for me. And there's a, you know, moment of identification I have where I'm like, I'm not going to have fun with this. Like, I've already had too little fun. And if I continue having this little fun, I know I could be doing something else. And if that something else could be sitting in silence. Like I spend a lot of my day just sitting around in silence, thinking about shit. My own thoughts are more interesting than bad anime. So I cannot be bothered to like sit through something that sucks, but I could just be like enjoying my own thoughts, you know, over like something that sucks. I've also talked a lot about why it's so hard to make good anime. And honestly, this video that's my most popular one, I disagree with heavily because I kind of put a lot of it on the audience. Basically, my argument here is because people can't recognize what's good, they are spending all their money on bullshit. You know, everybody wastes all their money on crap. And I think the problem kind of cuts a few ways. It's more like good stuff is so hard to make that oftentimes it's not really a good idea to make good stuff. You really shouldn't even try unless you have a clear idea of how you're going to do it. How are you going to make money? How are you going to pay off all the people who are working on this thing? Because every time we now hear a story of something that's amazing, like say Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2, which has this incredible animation, and then you find out how bad the circumstances were for the animators, how little they were getting paid, how long of hours on what crunch they were under, and you think like, well, was that worth getting this? You know, like I didn't want to know that a bunch of people had to like really suffer just for me to see something that looks kind of cool. You know, when I know there are other more responsibly sourced, you know, animations out there. And I don't know enough about the behind the scenes of Glitch. I want to know more because I love these independent animations and the way that they're promoting one another. Studio Glitch just launched the merchandising for Lackadaisy, which the first full-length episode of this show, of completely independent animation, I considered like a strong 9 to a 10. I absolutely adored watching this. Somebody paid me to watch it on stream, which is now basically what I do. I'm at this point pretty much a full-time streamer. Most of what I do is get paid $1 a minute or a page to read or watch things and react to them. And whether that be YouTube videos, which I have a lot to say about often, or independent animations, or reading books, reading the audience's work. You know, I'm just interested in all sorts of art, but and consuming it and commenting on it. But one of the best things that I've watched was Lackadaisy, and I've also really enjoyed Murder Drones, and I kind of enjoyed The Amazing Digital Circus, but from Glitch. But these have been incredibly successful, unfathomably successful, to the point that this bigger company could just fucking literally bankroll the merchandise of this smaller animation company so that that animation company can get to a level where they can start doing more episodes of their shows, self-funded, because they don't know how the fuck to get funding without, you know, doing something evil. Like, it's really hard to make good stuff without fucking anybody over at any stage of the operation, whether it be through money, through emotional manipulation, through, you know, whatever different, there's usually those two, usually you either fuck up their money or you fuck up their mind, you know, through working with them. How do you sanely create content? I have been looking for the answer for a long time. How do I make content that doesn't hurt me as a content creator, doesn't hurt you as the audience, doesn't hurt anybody who has to work on it? You know, okay, I need to go back to where I was. I was on the popular videos page. I kind of was like, wait, how did I get onto this subject? I got so on a tangent. I complained about Sword Art Online a whole lot. but not nearly as much as Mother's Basement. Mother's Basement is another channel that was heavily influenced by me, pretty much came up at the same time my channel was blowing up in 2016. And the popularity of both of us, like, shitting on bad anime at the same time really launched us into the mainstream of anime criticism. Like, we both got our numbers to this point where we had millions of views in early 2016 through talking about Sword Art Online. And Mother's Basement did it a lot more time, went back to that well a lot, you know. I kind of ran out of shit to say pretty quickly about it. I also nuked Crunchyroll one time, and I don't know if this was a smart career move on my part. It was really my my ex's decision. She was like, "You should really talk about this this shitty show that Crunchyroll is making," and I was like, "Okay." And it got 1 million views overnight. But it also got me blacklisted from a lot of things. So I feel like on the one hand, this was a very effective video in the sense that I was correct and convincing, and therefore Crunchyroll had to change things about their website because of this video. But did it do good things for me? I think it might have done better things for the anime community than it did for me on a personal level. Anyway, so yeah, this is the stuff that I am most known for. Most of this being videos from 7 to 5 years ago, 9 to 5 years ago. Yeah. So, and these videos didn't have these view counts either until this one blew up. Like, so it's worth remembering, like, this was my first video that actually blew up talking about anime, and it had 70,000 views. It crossed 100K by the end of like 2014, you know, the year that it came out. And then it was at like 350,000 views. And so was this one, and so was this one, and so was this one, until this came out. And then, well, not this one. This was actually later. But until this one came out, all of these had 350K, and then they all caught second wind off of this one being so crazy popular. And pretty much that's how it stayed. All of these videos, they only get views now because they show up in related videos to this one, and this one shows up in related videos to Mother's Basement videos. And that's the main pipeline of me like still getting views on this channel that is mostly dead, aside from the fact that I now use it for live streaming. So it's like pseudo alive. It's like a puppet corpse kind of. But since I am using this puppet corpse, I feel like this is the time to make a profile for myself and actually explain who I am and what I have been doing besides this one thing I'm best known for that I did like 8 years ago. I was thinking about writing this out, but it'll be easier to explain it first and then maybe start trying to write it out. My sacrifice didn't go in vain. Crunchyroll Video Player getting better made my life much better. I'm glad to hear that. I mean, supposedly they were going to update it anyways. They were like, we were going to do it in like 3 months, you know, but they just had to rush it to be out because of the backlash. But it's unfucking believable how long it had taken. It was crazy. They were still using Flash. It was like, how is this not priority number one? It was so tone deaf of them. And I really feel bad for Ray Rodriguez because that show is perfectly fine. And there's no fucking reason that needed to be the nuke that it was not Ray's fault. It wasn't fucking High Guardian Spice's fault that Crunchyroll sucked. You know, it was just the last straw. This is giving strong vibes of my real YouTube history of videos. I don't even remember what those videos are that you're referring to. Let me go look that up. Real YouTube history of... is this like a series I did or something? No, the other Trixie has done something like this, apparently. Okay. Real YouTube history of Digibro from Digibro After Dark. Okay, yes, I do remember that. Yeah, I went back through, and that was basically just like me going back through my main channel and explaining how successful each video had actually been. That's a good way of, no, you don't have to worry about that naming is in the video title, but, and I guess that channel is still called What the fuck is that channel called? Is it still called Branches of Yig? Because that doesn't even make sense. I really got to figure out what the fuck I'm going to do with the After Dark channel. There's no sense in making a Trixie After Dark. Everything I do is insane. So I don't know. I don't know what to do with that one. But anyways, After Dark was the low-key superior channel, and it was the one that I more so made money off of. All right, y'all are getting too... see, this is making it too confusing already, right? I'm trying to profile myself in a way that newcomers who don't know who I am will be able to follow along and understand who I am, what I've been doing, besides being really popular in 2016 for making a few anime videos. So let's go back to the start. You know, I was born in Oakland, California, in a hospital in Oakland, California. My parents lived in Anaheim, but not the Anaheim by LA, the Anaheim by the Bay. Actually, let's do this through maps. This will make it more fun for everybody, especially me. Mostly me. I like maps. That's a good thing. Something you should know about me. I really like maps and geography and topography and landscape stuff. Okay, so San Francisco, right? Famously gay place. No surprise I came from here. Alameda, that's the one I meant. Not the other thing I said. So this is the San Francisco Bay. This is the city of San Francisco, famously gay. This is the city of Oakland, famously hard, and full of amazing music. So my dad was in the Navy, and my mom, who's from Newport News, Virginia, on the other side of the country. My dad, he's from San Diego. The two of them, I think, no, San Jose, I mean. My dad's from down here. My dad's from this area, I think, if I remember correctly. But anyway, he got stationed here at Alameda. So my mom and dad, they got married. They moved here. They lived on this little island. This island is so small, it did not have a hospital at the time, which is why I was born in Oakland. My family then moved to Treasure Island, this little tiny man-made island that is connected. It's literally just connected to this bridge that connects San Francisco and Oakland. And then from there, by the time I was 3, my parents had apparently moved 7 times. I know that we lived in... we lived for a while in Westminster down here, which is like where Sublime comes from. And then we lived in San Diego for a while. This is where my brother Victor was born. This is also the area that my husband Bird comes from. He comes specifically from this town up here called San Marcos. Yeah, right there. San Marcos, nearby to Escondido, which is the more famous city. The setting of my new light novel, web novel series, Sun Ops. Okay, so I lived all the fuck over this part of California. This is like a 6-hour drive, by the way, from San Francisco to Los Angeles, 2 hours from LA to San Diego. So this is like a fucking huge land area that we're talking about. But I lived in 7 places around here. In 1994, I was born in 1991, I should mention also. So, that one, Lucario fan. You've got like almost facts in here. Wait, this is funny. I will read this to you and tell you how much of this is correct. You grew up with a mom whose sister had run away from home. She got together with your father. They were both working with a Spencer's or Hot Topic-esque shop, and the shop sent you all to Off Fest. This is almost you've got like different stories combined. Off Fest is a different concert. That was related to Ozfest thing. I went to one of those. It's the first concert I went to as like an attendee. But Lollapalooza is the show that you're thinking of. So, and this was actually before they worked at a shop that was like that. So at the time that they were down here, again, my dad was in the Navy the first 2 years that I was alive. He finished his 6-year stint in the Navy. He'd been in for 4 years by the time I was born. So I was born down here in 90 or up here in 1991, moved all around here. And then my parents worked for like a clothing brand. I believe it was Pernici that like basically gave them a bunch of stock and a bunch like just a bunch of buckets full of stock, and they basically constructed from those buckets a stand with which to sell the stock of random shirts and stuff, just whatever apparel they had. Typically this just meant like my mom kind of being near the buckets with me and my brother Victor. I posted recently some photos because my mom found a old like home video from Lollapalooza, and I took some pictures from it of me as like a 2-year-old sitting with all these buckets. Here we go. This is the setup we had. Literally just like opened up the tubs. Like they hadn't given us anything to actually set up. So we just had buckets full of clothes. And there's me sitting in like this little director chair, being the boss, telling everybody what to do and where to go. You can see all the dirty hippies on the lawn. Yeah. So that's Lollapalooza, 1994, I think. And then we also did 1995. So that tour took us all the way around the country. The second time we did the tour, like the guy that we were touring with was like a meth head or something, and the car kept breaking down, and like it's just a bad time. So we ended up like me and my mom hung out in Virginia, and my dad just kind of finished the tour. And then we moved all of our shit and we moved to Virginia. So like right after the second Lollapalooza tour, we moved to Virginia because I guess just because my mom's family was all out here, and maybe it was seen more promising to live out here than it did to live in California. I'm not really entirely sure. But most likely it's just because my mom's family was out here. So we moved into a little apartment here in Newport News. And then growing up, I mostly lived in Virginia Beach, but again, we just kept moving like every single year, like all the time. Basically just because my parents would make more money, or particularly my dad. Like when they first moved down, they both became managers at, like you said, Lucario fan, a sort of a Spencer's-esque like hippie shop called Picasso Moon. It's like a little more high end, I guess, than a Spencer's, like, expensive hippie shit, kind of little bit pretentious. Like my parents didn't own anything from this store because it was a little bit too expensive for them to actually own the stuff at the store they were managing. And then my dad basically just, because of the fact that my mom got pregnant with a third kid, Shade, was like, we have to make a shitload of money now. Like I now have to make a shitload of money because I have 3 fucking kids. So he kicked all of the deadbeats out of his life, and he got a job in the car industry and just became employee of the month. Every month just became the ultimate car guy. So he sold cars, again, kept making more money year after year. So we kept moving around, but every once in a while he would have problems at work, crises of consciousness, get upset with the people running it. So every once in a while he was looking to drop out of this industry, maybe go do something else. And every once in a while they'd fly him around the country, they'd fly him somewhere, take a tour. And one time he flew to Arizona and was like, this is where I really want to live more than anything else, but we can't afford it. And my aunt down in Florida, the same aunt whose son lit himself on fire to kill himself, who had the Christian amulet. Yeah, we're getting deep lore. You're going to have to watch that whole live stream to understand that. She lived in Pensacola. So we moved from here down to Pensacola in with her with the ambition of raising money to go to Arizona. None of that happened. We ran out of money and we moved back to Virginia Beach. And then we moved to Newport News because my dad kept switching dealerships because he didn't like the management. And then he became a born-again Christian, and we moved to Chesterfield, Where the fuck is Chesterfield? It's near Richmond. I know that. It's not all the way out in Farmville. Where the fuck is Chesterfield? A nothing burger town. Yeah. Just a little town south of Richmond, Chesterfield. We moved here, but it was so slow. My dad could not handle actually working in such a slow environment. Then we moved into inner city Richmond for a while because he became an electrician, but was making so little money doing that it was like not really tenable. So we moved back to Virginia Beach so he could work in the cars again. And we moved a couple times. And then when I was living living right precisely here, when I was living right precisely here in this house, that is when I ended up living there for like 9 years. It was from like we moved there right when I was graduating high school when I was 17. So at this point I'd lived in like as many houses as the number of years I have. But we lived there for like 8 years, and that's where I started my whole career, my whole YouTube career. So when I got famous in this house, in a room in this house that people got really like intimate with, where like my audience felt really attached to who I was in this house. And I was there for a long time, much longer than anywhere else I'd ever been. Never did I ever expect I would be there for nearly so long. I was an adult most of the time I lived there. I was living with my parents. At one point, my parents moved out. They moved over here to live close to the beach. And me and my editor of the time, Devu, and Ben Saint lived here. And Shade, my brother, and his then fiance. So that was like when everybody knew me. Was when like the period when people most knew who I was is when my parents had moved out, Ben and Devu had moved in. It was never really meant to be a long-term solution. I always knew I was leaving Virginia Beach. This is not a good place to live. This whole area here, Hampton Roads, the reason this is not a good place to live, I will tell you, is that all of this is a massive swamp that nothing can be built on, that killed most of the settlers that came here when we landed here. The only reason civilization exists here is we landed here. Now, Richmond is like a kind of a real place. Again, it mostly exists because it's like the first stop that you can reach that actually makes sense to have built a city on, where none of this does. This is all swamp. And then up here you got Washington, D.C. And so this is the whole this is where all the bad people live in our country. This is just a hellhole. Baltimore is basically Washington, D.C. is the government and Baltimore is the anti-government. And this is like where the war for American freedom is taking place. And then all of the rich people who still want to be close to the action, they filled in all this. So all the rich people from here that wanted to own land and own property, they just like made all of this a thing. All of this sucks. This is all shit. All of this is cool. This is all just shit in the mountains. This is where cool, like all the shitty people went up here. All the cool people went out here, but they didn't like newcomers for a long time. They didn't like the queers or the blacks or anything like that. But now their whole industry is tourism. So these places are turning around. They have to accept us now. So they're becoming cool places again for even people like me. But mostly, Atlanta, that's a big city. The South sucks. The Midwest sucks. It's all natural disasters. California is cool, but it's the most expensive place in the world. I don't know why I'm reviewing the United States. How did this end up happening? Well, I'm talking about where I would have gone. All the places that are better than here, which is not much, actually. It's pretty much just like... What's actually cool? I guess I like West Virginia, and that's it. What else do I like? I liked all this until all the natural disasters happened. Arizona's cool. It's too hot, though. This is not a good place to live, this country. This isn't really built for humans. Humans don't have the bodies for the climate here. I don't think we were meant to come here. I don't think this is a place we're supposed to be. That's why everybody likes, I mean, San Diego is by far the most pleasant like to be in part of the US. And it's incredibly expensive because everybody wants to be in the most pleasant part to be in, obviously. But you know, the rest of it is you can take or leave it. It's okay. It's mostly kind of a wasteland. So anyway, I had my career here, began here. I moved to Rochester for a year. I moved to Boston for a year. I moved to Kentucky for a while. I still technically live there, even though I'm not there. I think that's all the places I've lived. Oh, yeah, and I also lived in Huntington Beach because my parents were living there for a while. And now they're living back here in Norfolk, which is where I am now, in Ward's Corner. Looking for a fight, you'll have to find me in the forest in Northside Norfolk, Ward's Corner, near the water of the James, as I keep saying. Gary Always at $2 says, being your own Yoko Ono in people's minds. Thoughts? I think it might be true. People think that I am the woman who destroyed my own Beatles, I guess. I don't know. Okay. So that's the places I've been, the places I've lived, where I've ended up in life. So I basically would characterize myself as a natural drifter. Like, I never thought of a place as home because I started off completely disconnected, you know, like just totally. By the time I started like actually being able to process memories, you know, and like have a sense of self-identity, we were living in Virginia Beach, and all of this just felt like weird, vague memories, you know, of me going to 36 different states and shit. Like, I don't remember none of that shit. And so my identity started forming here in Virginia Beach. But again, we moved so often. We'd always be changing schools. You know, every school is in a totally different curriculum. Like, everywhere I went, everything felt disconnected to me. So I had usually like one or two friends that I could make each place I was at who just liked the same stuff I like. Because that was most of how I identified myself, was just what I like. So as a little kid, it was like Barney, Sesame Street, playing the Sega Pico, you know, like this was literally my whole identity. It was all I had to really say about myself. Cause like, you know, in those first few years living out here, I mean, my dad's brothers were around sometimes. Like, I guess I had met them, but none of my mom's family was out here. So like for the first few years, I didn't really know who my family was, or, you know, what my culture is. Where did I come from? You know, once we lived out here, I met all of my mom's family. And like in the early days, when most of them were doing kind of like in the 90s, we're a good time in the United States, you know, fiscally, everybody was doing pretty well, and they were all like young up and comers with children, and you know, we'd all have big get-togethers for holidays and stuff. We kind of had that for July 4th. A lot of the same people are still around this area now, but it's been much more fractured for most of the time since then. So this was the first time I had a sense of like, who is my extended family? And by that, I mean like my aunts and uncles, and not even like beyond that. You know, my mom's got a huge family. I've never met most of them because we've always been on the road, always been moving places. And I developed a tendency to just reject most information. And this is something that only now in like, you know, my 30s am I really learning how to deal with, of like how to pay attention to stuff, because I think I was just so overwhelmed by everything I was taking in those early years. I just started blocking most stuff out, you know, like I really didn't start registering people's existence until I've had like a few conversations with them, you know, like I used to call myself car dyslexic because I could not tell any two cars apart except for like vaguely the shape and color until being with Bird in like the second year we were together. He became obsessed with watching car videos and like learning about cars. And so he educated me about like every single car on the road until a point that I like something switched in my mind that I had to start caring, and now I am always going to notice the cars, so like completely created an interest in cars in me, but most stuff I just never paid attention to. It all felt like a blur. I was very introverted and very in my head. I didn't spend a lot of time like investigating other people or the world outside. I really was just about the stuff that I like. Pretty much better than books, car reviews. I went to the regular car meetup at Too Many Games, and there's no way it would have meant anything to me if not for like how educated I've become in cars, because Carrie always with the "What's your dad like for $2?" That's Dick Masterson's pickup line. I will answer that in a moment. But like at this meetup, there were all these cars that are indeed very regular, but also very obscure in a way that like, if I hadn't spent the last 3 years taking note of every single car on the road, there's no way I would have thought these were special, but like seeing them, I was like, wait a minute, what is this car? I kept having that experience. What's my dad like? Very, very driven, very goofy dude. He's got real intense ADD. So he cannot like hold on to a subject for long. If you try to have a conversation with him, you really got to make your points quickly and, like leave an impact, or he's not going to remember any of that shit. Which makes him very good at managing a dealership, because it's pretty much sitting at a desk and having information come to you constantly that you have to deal with right away. So, watching him at work, it's actually pretty stunning to see like, oh my God, like I would have to think for a second before I could answer a question like that, but he's just always addressing things, but he's very interested in philosophy, theology, stuff that I think is dumb, but I now know all about it because, he bought all these books when I was a teenager, and I took an interest in, I'm more interested in psychology personally. So all of that to me was like a bridge into psychology, but, I ended up learning about the philosophy stuff too. And he's into like anything like sociology, any kind of like pop sociology type stuff, he did my dad join the Space Force? No, but he did make a hilarious series of YouTube videos about wanting to join the Space Force. I think he was too old to actually join it by that point, but I'm sure he would have if it had been a thing. Like if there had been a Space Force when he was young, unquestionably that's the one he would have picked over the Navy. But my dad joined the Navy just to eat. He dropped out of high school because his parents had split up. His real dad, he basically never knew. He left his mom with her 4 kids because she just wasn't really trying. And I think he just basically bailed on it. Like he bailed on trying to make it work with her and just fucking fled to South Africa and became an actor in South Africa. So my dad's real dad, he spent most of his life down here. And my dad never really knew about him until he was dead. And the woman he remarried to is now friends with my dad. He's kind of taken her as like more of a mother figure, because she just happened to live in Huntington Beach when they lived out there. But yeah, his real mom, who died just a couple of years ago, she was just basically absent and alcoholic throughout his upbringing. My dad, she remarried to the man who our last name Collins comes from. Like my dad's stepdad adopted him and his brothers. So my dad was actually born Cohen, Todd Cohen, and then, changed to Todd Collins. So I don't really feel any there's like so many layers of why I don't feel an attachment to my own like lineage or past. It's like my grandparents either weren't around or were terrible people, and and their lineage goes back to like neither of my grandmas is really necessarily respectable. My mom's mom is still alive. I just saw her yesterday. She's fine. She's just a frail old lady, but like all of her decision making has been terrible throughout her life, and it's been very detrimental to the rest of the family. So like I can't look at either of my grandmas as like good people. Both of their descendancies go back to slave owners. So as far as I'm concerned, my family's a whitewash, a wash of white, of bad whiteness. As for the dads, my dad's real dad ran out on him, and his adoptive dad, who was great, died when my dad was like 30 and I was like 8 or something. So I can't even remember his face, and even though he was apparently a great guy, like because they had joint custody, there was a period where he had, during my dad's youth, even his stepdad broke up with his mom. His stepdad remarried to someone else. They each took different kids, and the mom just wasn't feeding them. She was just like locked herself in her room and drank throughout their teenage years. So my dad would be like robbing flip trucks to eat and shit. And he joined, the second he turned 18, he dropped out of high school, joined the Navy to eat, doubled his size, immediately. And he was a guy who he would have wanted to be like a sports star. Like he loves sports, he loves physical stuff, but he just was so underfed. He grew up like a scrawny little guy, I think there's a strong chance he would have grown much bigger and stronger had he not been so malnourished, growing up. And my mom on her side, my grandma, my mom's mom, she's still alive, so I don't want to talk too much trash, because if she hears it, she'll never live it down. I'll never live it down, rather. But she never let my mom know who her real dad was. I don't know if she knew who my mom's real dad was, but my mom found out who her real dad was about less than 10 years ago. We live with him now. He's in his early 90s, doesn't really have a functioning memory or like that good of sight or hearing. So, we're basically just caretaking him. We can't really interact with him in a way. He's never had the opportunity to really live as a father, because he never knew that he had a daughter until he was 82. And my mom's, the man that she thought was her dad growing up, my mom was the 5th of 6 kids, 5 daughters and a son. The first 4 were all with the same guy who my grandma was married to at the time. Then she started cheating on her husband, and she had 2 other kids with 2 other men. So my mom's dad is a different guy, and her younger sister's dad is a different guy, even from her own dad. And which side of the family did I get my encyclopedic memory from? Definitely the mom side. Definitely from my mom and grandma. It's definitely not from granddad. His memory's gone for the most part. But my grandma, she still remembers shit from her own fucking childhood. I mean, she's still operating under, like guilt complex from stuff she's afraid people back in Healesville, where she's from, like would have, like she's afraid of the opinions of people she hasn't seen in decades, from this place, but still probably talks to on the phone, if I'm being honest. Where the fuck, where did the search function go? There you are. I must have accidentally like full on, zoomed in. Healesville. He is out in the middle of nowhere. Now, when you're crossing Virginia, you have to go up through Richmond, up through Charlottesville, and then down across the mountains to get anywhere, to get to Knoxville or to get to, you know, Corbin, where my legal address is over here. Hillsville is like a significant ways off of the highway. So you have to really be going to Hillsville to be there. Her dad was like my grandma's dad was like a business owner there, a ruthless, evil man by all descriptions. And when she got married before she was 18, he kicked her and her husband out of the house, and they came here to work in the shipyards at Newport News. And my grandma, having had 6 kids, almost certainly was turning tricks for a living. She basically, you know, she dated another guy every couple of years. So my mom grew up also moving constantly. Even though it was all in Newport News, they always had new houses because their whole financial situation pretty much depended on whoever her mom was dating at the time. So my mom, as soon as she turned 16, she started getting her own jobs. She started doing her own shit. She had her own life pretty much. She was kind of a hoe also by her own description. Her and her friends in high school were all like just basically competing to get the most dick. They were sluts. At one point, as Lucario fan remembers, my mom and her younger sister fled across country with a couple of guys who were a couple years older than them to California because of just some crazy story that the one guy had filled my mom's head with, and she believed all this shit. This was super illegal. The cops drove them back, you know, like a week later. And that was why my mom knew that it would be a bad idea for her to go to California with my dad unless they were married. That's why they got married after a mere 6 weeks of knowing one another. And they have now been married for their anniversary was like a couple weeks ago. 34 years, 35. I'm turning 33. So they're 34. Yeah. They just had their 34th anniversary. So yeah, so they met here where my mom, you know, still lived in this area, but then they ended up moving to California because of his redeployment. And he just was in town because, you know, it's a place with a whole lot of military bases. So if you're military in America, there's a good chance you end up here if you're getting transferred around and shit. So that's my parents. That's their story. Both of them very, like, you know, I consider them basically feral children that miraculously, through just like sheer scrappy fighting spirit, survived, you know, to adulthood, somehow had 3 kids, somehow raised all 3 kids to adulthood, sheer force of will. Which is why I'm like this. It's why I am so headstrong to take you on. It's because they're like that. So, but for me, again, not being from any particular place has given me a lot of insight onto how much the environment around people matters to like understanding like how to behave at all. You know, like you really are very much the product of your environment. And if you're not going off of anything except for yourself, it's very hard to fit in with other people. You know, like if you're using your metric of what's normal and not the metric of everybody around you, you can't relate. And for me, I literally showed up at 4 years old from the other side of the country and was dropped into kindergarten, you know? And I'm like, I don't fucking understand it. Like the first thing that's happening to me is people telling me that I'm a girl because I've got long hair. I'm from fucking California. I had no conception of this idea, you know, but out here, they don't got no little long-haired boys. That's weird. That's not normal. But when I went home to my mom and told her that, she's not like, oh, you got to cut your hair to fit in. She's like, well, do you like having long hair? I'm like, yeah. Like, well, then fuck them. And I'm like, all right, fuck them then. And so that's the mentality I grew up with. It was, all right, fuck them then. Which can be healthy and it can be harmful. You kind of got to know what you're doing. I did not growing up. Good point, Snake. 33 is a strong spiritual number. Since I'm a witch, this will be my chance to hex my enemies. Hell yeah. I'm gonna put a fucking hazelnut hex on them. I'll show you this game. I just played through this morning. There we go. Fuck, I didn't realize the audio was going to come on like that. The game was fun. It was cute as shit. It's about a breakfast witch. She created a breakfast cereal called Hazelnut Hex. Also, apparently the creator is an animator on Smiling Friends. That's neat. Cool stuff. Do recommend. Virginia has given birth to the most U.S. presidents. Well, that's because it's kind of all that existed for a while. We had all these territories, but like all the founding fathers just like came from around here. They all built their houses out here. You can go see like half the fucking president's houses up in these mountains. The early ones, I mean. Anyway. So as a kid, I was very introverted. I was very self-centered. And again, the only way I really connected with other people was by liking the same stuff as them. And I got really offended by other people not liking the stuff that I liked. So that made stuff difficult too. Where like if people are making fun of the stuff I like, I would be like, like intense about it. So how do I why is the exterior stuff like zoomed in? Oh, it's like a different zoom. It's a zoom apart from the map zoom. Interesting. How weird. Okay. I got some hot dogs stuck in my teeth and it's driving me crazy. Okay. I don't need Hillsville open either. So as a kid growing up in Virginia Beach, transferring schools all the time, I remember having like, I'm trying to pull through like all the memories I have of this period, like pull it all back. I remember going to school I still remember the first time that I had to get on a school bus, go to the back of the bus and see my mom disappearing behind me and just feeling like I have no fucking idea what to do because I had not done anything by myself. I was clinging to my mom's shirt for the first 5 years, pretty much. I'd been to like daycare, I'd been left in other people's hands, but I would just straight dissociate through that. Like my methodology of dealing with not being around my mom was like a total shutdown. I've always been very good at dissociation. I'm very good at not paying attention to things and just kind of zipping up into my mind and letting the wind take me. And as a kid, I think just based on having survived as long as I had, I just kind of assumed that like adults must have your best interest in mind. Like they must be looking out for you. And I'm surprised how much that actually did work out for me. Like in a school environment, people are at least looking out for you enough that you're not going to like, I don't know, maybe I was just using my own wits and I was smart enough that I didn't get myself hurt. But I really felt like I would just like relied on adults for everything as a kid. I didn't know how to talk. I didn't know how to do anything. But I was good at reading and writing because of Sesame Street. Like I had really learned how to read and write through Sesame Street and Barney. And so when I started school, I was like more advanced than most of the other kids at the actual schoolwork. So even though I didn't fit in and I hated being there, I felt very proud of the fact that I was actually good at it. So like that kind of got me through the first couple of years. Like I didn't mind so much all the social awkwardness because I just thought of it as like a place you go to do schoolwork and be good at it, But by the time I got to third grade is when the social aspect started weighing on me. And a big part of this is, again, transferring schools too much. So like I can remember as a kid a period where like when I was in first grade, I had a friend who introduced me to video games because he had a Super Nintendo and he had like Mario and Mega Man on it. And my cousin, who also would later introduce me into anime, had brought over an N64 and was playing Diddy Kong Racing. And seeing that was like mind blowing. I was like, whoa, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I need this games. I need this games, you know? It took a long time for me to actually track down a copy of that fucking game, even after having an N64. But like, that friend of mine who had the Super Nintendo, he also got me into the Godzilla movies because he was really into the old like 70s, you know, the more kid-friendly Godzilla movies. He had them all on VHS and we watched them together. So there was a period of time. And also around then I watched Jurassic Park. So, and I'm not talking about Boyd, Gary. I'm talking about my older cousin who got me, like my cousin Boyd and I both got into all this stuff because of my eldest cousin. He's like more than 10 years older than me, my cousin Jared. He's a bit of a psychopath. Not a great guy by any description. He was a guy who growing up would just break his video games over and over again in fits of rage, just like a kind of a you know, crazy person. Because of his behavior, my mom did not want me to have video games. Like, she was convinced video games do incite violence because of how violent this kid was and how into video games he was. But he, you know, the video game he was playing at my house is fucking, because when he would come over to our house, he would like play kid-friendly stuff. His mom probably told him to, now that I think about it. She was probably like, well, don't play all that violent stuff in front of the kids, you know? So he's playing like Diddy Kong, or he would like bring over. He was the reason I first saw Pokemon, because we all took a trip to Florida to visit the same aunt I mentioned that I would later end up living with. But when I was a little younger, we had taken a trip to Florida, and he was there, and he showed us Pokemon on VHS literally before it had started running on WB. Like, he had the tape because he, as a college student, was just plugged in on all this, like, you know, shit. He had Pokemon cards from the first edition set, you know. So he was the one who put me onto Pokemon. He was the one who put me onto N64. He was the one who put me onto anime. Like, he just was the big cousin who found out all the shit and filtered it down through the family, you know, all this degenerate nonsense that corrupted us horribly and turned us into degenerate perverts. That was all his fault. So, so yeah, he started us on the path. But so, like, when I was 6, when I was in the first grade, like, my obsessions were dinosaurs because of Jurassic Park, Mortal Kombat because it's a Mortal Kombat movie, although I wasn't good at the games, but I liked them. Godzilla because of my friend getting me into it, and like newly trying to get into video games, but it was not quite breaking through because I couldn't find Diddy Kong Racing. And then when I was 7, Pokemon hit, and like Pokemon was so core to me because it was the first time that something I liked, everyone around me liked. Like, none of aside from the kid who got me into Godzilla, I couldn't get anybody else into Godzilla. You know, like, I would meet kids. I was trying very hard to be social. I just sucked at it because I was angry. I would swear a lot. You know, I was very defensive of my taste. All habits that are very much from my parents. But, you know, I learned all of my communication from them, and I indignantly thought that they were like the most correct people, that like everyone else, anybody who thinks differently from my parents must be wrong. You know, that was my mentality growing up. So it just so happens my parents think differently from almost anybody else around. So it means everyone must be wrong to me as a kid. So, and obviously this mentality has carried through to me just thinking everyone who's not me is wrong. Parents included, obviously. So, so yeah, growing up, I just thought I was like the smartest kid and that my taste was the best, and everybody was wrong all the time, and nobody else knew how to express themselves to, like, because most people, if your taste is the same as everyone else, you don't feel a need to defend it. You don't come up with like a list of reasons that you like this thing or that other things suck. But when people are constantly rejecting the stuff you like, you try to figure out, how do I explain to them why this thing is good? Or how do I explain to them why their thing actually sucks and my thing is cool, you know? And so I would come up with all these obsessive explanations, but like none of it matters. Like, ultimately, the reason people like the stuff they like is just usually because everyone else likes it. Like, that's a big part of it, is like, I want to fit in, so I'm going to do what everyone's doing, you know? Like, that's the draw. even having like a negative opinion could be more fun than having a no opinion on like, or having a negative opinion of a popular thing could be more fun than having a positive opinion of something nobody cares about because you can't talk to anybody about it, So it's you really got to lure people in. You really got to be sweet. You got to honeypot people into liking things. You cannot go the accusatory route. You cannot go like, oh, you suck for not liking this thing. It doesn't work. I tried throughout my childhood, did me no favors. So because as a kid, I was moving all the time, always changing social groups, always having to make new friends. There was one house I lived in for 4 years as a kid, but I changed schools because I ended up getting shifted to a gifted school. And none of the kids in my cul-de-sac in my neighborhood went to that school. So I lost like a lot of my friendships with the people around me. They all treated me like an outsider, even though I lived in the same neighborhood as them because I didn't know any of the other people they went to school with, And then I eventually got transferred back into the same school as everybody else. And I didn't fit in when I got back there because I had now come in from this other school and everybody thought that I was like better than everyone else. When really I had by this point started to be convinced I was worse than everyone else. Like 3rd, 4th grade was when I started to, because I didn't do well at the gifted school. So like all of that, that chip on my shoulder I had of like, well, I know I'm the smartest person here, like fell away because it's like, well, now I know I'm not the smartest person here. I know I can't just breeze through all the schoolwork and I've dropped out of the gifted program. Like I'm back with the normals, and on top of that, I don't fit in. So yeah, that was when I first started being like depressed. It was 4th grade. It was the first time I started considering suicide because I was like, I just don't know how do I breach this gap? Like nobody likes me, what do I need to do? And I was mostly stuck on trying to recreate the things I like, well, this stuff made me like it. So what if I made something like this? And through Pokemon, I got really into magazines because there was the Beckett Pokemon Collector magazine and then Nintendo Power, which had giveaways where like the reason we got a Nintendo Power subscription is that it came with the Pokemon trading card game on Game Boy as like a freebie if you bought the subscription. So we did that in order to get that game, and then I think bought a second copy for Victor. And then like I got into reading the magazine and I got really into magazines, and that led me, once my older cousin introduced us to anime and I got the Anime Insider magazine, like that, it was the magazines really drove my interest, like having a magazine that talks about a thing I'm into is a huge magnification of the effect, which is why I'm so sad that magazines suck now. The only anime magazine left is Otaku USA, and it's fucking dog shit, as I have explained in a few other live streams. But yeah, magazines are a big part of getting me into stuff in the late 90s. I understand why they're dead. I just wish there was more. I wish more people were trying to copy the format of magazines through the internet. I've seen some good stuff doing it. I want more. Anyway, so yeah, in this period where I felt like I was having trouble connecting with the people around me, the main way I would connect with other people is video games. And keep in mind, I have 2 younger brothers. My brother Victor is only a year and a half younger than me, and throughout the period when we lived in that house for 4 years is really when he was starting to become like a person. And so I basically had Victor as like my almost lackey for most of my upbringing. I really did treat him like a lackey. Like I made Victor do shit for me all the time. Like I just treated him as like this easily manipulated, because he was a very emotional kid. So it was really easy for me to manipulate his emotions and just like fuck with him and make him do stuff for me, like by emotional. I was fucking terrible, very terrible older sister to my brother. Mean spirited in the way I handled him. He was such a crybaby and such an emotional kid. It was just easy, And so it wasn't even that I was like bullying him, like, because I considered him like cool and to be my number 2. It was just that anything I wanted, I was going to get out of him. Get him to go get me stuff. Like if I wanted the drink or something. I was going to come up with a reason he had to go do that for me. And if he tried to resist, I would then think of a further, like a deeper manipulation, than my previous one, just to get even more into his head. Yeah. And then, Shade was like a baby basically at the time, but I cherished Shade. I thought he was just the cutest, most fucking, he was just a perfect little baby. It was like, yes, we have baby. I always called him Baby Shade, and I was like, Baby Shade is perfect. Baby Shade is the ultimate. Baby Shade is the greatest, So yeah, Baby Shade grew up with a very inflated sense of self-importance because of all of this. And only now in adulthood is like, maybe what if I'm not actually the greatest? And I'm like, no, Baby Shade, you gotta keep believing in yourself. I told you were the greatest because I know it's true. You gotta believe. Anyway, Zoomers rise up indeed. So yeah, we had Baby Shade. We lived in this house for like 4 years. Again, I was pretty much just into Pokemon that whole time. Like I was really deeply obsessed with Pokemon. It became uncool with everybody else. I started getting made fun of for wearing Pokemon shit at school. Didn't matter to me. Pokemon was all I cared about. It was all I thought about. It was the only thing that gave me meaning to my fragile life. Again, I had friends mostly who I would play like N64 with. Like most of my connections would end up being about video games, but I was always the most interested in like the single player games that would get all these like rave reviews, reading in magazines and stuff. They're always talking about the Zeldas and the Perfect Darks and all these like great single player experiences. But as a kid growing up with two little brothers and friends over, almost never did I get to play a single player game. Never. So like I grew up with a lot of Super Smash Brothers, and really our interest in Super Smash Brothers radiated out to understanding the rest of the Nintendo catalog, learning who all these characters are over the years. But a lot of Super Smash Brothers, Diddy Kong Racing, Mario Kart, any kind of like sport or racing or fighting game or anything that can be played with multiple players was way more likely to be something. Pokemon Stadium, much more likely to be something we played. Party games, Mario Party, all that kind of shit. As I mentioned before, we ended up moving to Florida, then back. When we lived in Florida, this was the first time that I started to feel the kind of like empowering isolation of being a NEET that was going to become like the way I live now, where it's just kind of like me in an office doing art. That really started here in Florida because I made a game, like I quote, big air quotes, designed a game called Puzzling, which was just a Zelda clone. It was just, I had watched my cousin play Ocarina of Time. It blew my mind. It was the first story that ever like meant anything to me. So I started making my own version of Ocarina of Time where I'm like drawing out levels and like writing strategy guide of how you beat the level and then drawing each enemy in the level and describing what they do, and I was working on this throughout the summer. And then I also got interested in fiction writing at this time. And so I started writing a story called Golden Fantasy because it's Golden Sun meets Final Fantasy, you see. I had not played Final Fantasy, but I loved Golden Sun. And it's the Final Fantasy is the most famous RPG. So I wanted to make like an RPG. Yes. And thank you for pointing out that one, Lucario fan. This book that I was writing was the sequel to Puzzling about the main character's son. The main character in Puzzling was named Tikal, a word that I had just full on made up. It wasn't like Tikal, like Tikal, like the place, or the Method Man album or the Sonic level. It was Tical, Tikal. Just straight up. I think probably because my birth name is Conrad. I wanted something that had that kind of feel to it, like a hard C, like double consonant sound. I don't think I was thinking that hard about it as a kid, but I think I wanted it to sound like a cool version of my name, So Tikal was probably something like that. In my last name Collins, Ty Collins. It kind of makes sense. It kind of sounds a little bit like something like my name. But yeah. Tikal was the main character of that story. Tai Gen was his son. using Dragon Ball Z naming convention, because by this point I was aware of DBZ as well. Tycall ended up being my first internet handle, like the first one I used regularly and for years, and that like people would have known me by. Like Tycall was a known entity on the internet at a time. Not known for anything positive, really, but like a recognizable name to people in the forum communities that I was on. So that was the first name that I really had. The first time, so after living in Florida, we moved back to Virginia Beach. We had no cable, so I started watching Yu-Gi-Oh! On WB. But we did have internet, and I'd been using the internet for years at this point to like print out pictures of Beast Wars and go to the Pokemon website and play games on it, or the Gorillas website. And I found out about forums because I didn't know anybody at school who had watched any of Yu-Gi-Oh! I couldn't talk to Yu-Gi-Oh! About anybody. And I probably literally Googled something like talked about Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't know. I don't know how I ended up on this Yu-Gi-Oh! Forum, but I found myself in a Yu-Gi-Oh! Forum, and like the idea that there was like a large group of people just talking about Yu-Gi-Oh! Was like, what? Like I can't even find one fucking person to talk about Yu-Gi-Oh! With in my real life. And here's like 700 people, gathered on this forum talking about Yu-Gi-Oh! All fucking day. This is amazing. I would name myself something just like a string of ones, and then I kept forgetting how many ones I had put in, so I kept having to make new accounts to figure out what, couldn't remember the name until I settled on, I think probably it was Otaku Boards, an anime message board. So after living here and having no cable for a while, we moved to Newport News. And for the 2 years that we lived here was when I really spent a lot of time with my cousin Boyd, he lived in this area, Poquoson. Yeah, he lived over here in Poquoson. I lived over here in Newport News. So every weekend, my mom would go pick him up, bring him over. We would watch anime, either because he would buy DVDs with his allowance, or we'd just be watching what was on Adult Swim, and anime basically became my life. Now, a big part of the appeal for Boyd in coming over to hang out with a cousin who's 4 years younger than him is that we had computer. And so he could go on the computer and you look up forums, find out about new anime. He would download all kinds of shit, So through him finding out about shit on the computer, I learned about shit on the computer, and I started using more of these anime forums and stuff. Started using the name Tycall Ultimate because Tycall would be taken sometimes. So Tycall Ultimate, that is the original name of my YouTube channel, the original YouTube channel, not this one that you're watching on, but the Modal Soul. If you go there, you'll notice that the name is at Tycall Ultimate. So that's why we had to tell so much of this story, is because this is the first really like relevant name that might be recognizable to some of you, is Tycall Ultimate. I was like 12 and I started using this name in 2003 on like Otaku Boards. Is this the stream equivalent of the old I Googled myself trend? It's more intense than that, because when I Google myself, I get nothing but misinformation and incomplete information and stuff that doesn't really understand my story. So I'm trying to make this more like what comes up when you Google me. Try to like create something you could just write a profile out of, like write a Wikipedia page out of. Like what is my story exactly? And I'm really trying to do it in brief. I'm fucking that up. I didn't intend to go through so much of the history, but so Tycall Ultimate was the first name I was really using online. I was on Otaku Boards. I was on Anime Suki. I was on the Mega Tokyo forums. I was on Game FAQs forums. And for a while, so I had created the Tycall Ultimate account on all these places. And when I was 14 was when I first started dealing with like heavy identity issues. this is when I first started being like, I have to change my name all the time because I would feel differently about myself all the time. I would feel like disconnected from my identity. I felt like I had to reinvent myself and like become somebody new all the time. Like I had already fucked up so badly. I needed to, just scorched earth and start over. I was experiencing dysphoria. When I was 14 was really like things were really bad for me. Like mentally, probably the worst state I've ever been in. This was when my family moved to Richmond. I went to an inner city school, and even as hard as I tried, I could not make any friends because nobody wanted to hang out with the weird ass white kid. Even if they liked the same stuff that I liked, they did not want to hang out with me. And we had like just the shittiest internet connection. And I spent all my time just like refreshing forums, getting catfished and baited, and just generally like being really emo, wishing I was a girl, wishing I wasn't getting fat, wishing I wasn't growing facial hair, just being pretty fucking miserable around that time. And then we ended up moving to Virginia Beach again. This is when I'm, again, 14 in the 9th grade. And it wasn't like things just immediately got better or anything like that, but I got really into anime again. So, like, when we had been in Newport News, like I said, me and my cousin Boyd, super into anime. I made some, like, fan-made anime magazines around this time. Like, I just was obsessed with anime. That's where all my creativity was going. I also I wrote a couple fanfics around here, like some Zelda fan fictions. All of my writing was fucking terrible back then. So like none of this is worth looking into at all. I'm just letting you know, this is what I was up to, And then right before we moved out of here, I got really into video games because I finally got into the PS2. Like having been a Nintendo fan girl my whole upbringing, I decided, to finally give the PS2 a chance, and I ended up falling in love with it. And then later the Xbox as well. Like I realized, my identity no longer has to be tied to being a Nintendo fan. I could just enjoy video games. So when we lived in Chesterfield, was when I started like really getting into games, and in particular RPGs. This is when I found out that RPGs are basically just anime and video games combined. And so I got like way into all of the obscure PS2 RPGs. But when we moved to Richmond, my PS2 broke and we could not afford a new one. So I kind of like became sad about what's with the cow? That's my cow soda. So I kind of had fallen out with video games because I couldn't afford them anymore. And I got really into music because my cousin Boyd had downloaded all of this obscure music onto my computer. And so I would just basically, with nothing better to do, sit around and listen to it. And I started getting into stuff like Tool and Guar and all this like weird shit that he had put on my computer. So then when we moved back to Virginia Beach, this is when I was just kind of miserable all the time. And then I saw Evangelion, and that made me feel like, this is the type of misery. Like, this is what the misery I'm feeling is the inability to recognize how I look in other people's eyes. Like the fact that I can't understand why people see me the way that I do, and they can't understand why I see them the way they do. That's the problem I'm having. That's what Ava helped me realize. And then Haruhi helped me realize that I felt like Haruhi also. So I got really into anime. I was 16, this was kind of my second blossoming of anime. It was like 2.5 years I'd been into games and music. I hadn't really been paying attention to anime that much at all. Yeah, I don't mind the sun sometimes. Thank you, Gary. You got what I was doing there. We lived here. We lived around here. This is where I got into anime real hard. I started making friends in high school again, introducing people to anime. I ended up going, even though we moved twice while in this area, my parents thankfully moved to places in the same school zone, so it wouldn't be as disruptive. Like they finally figured out how disruptive it had been to be changing schools all the time. So we moved from like here to here, and then eventually to here, which is where I graduated by the time we lived in the Castle House, but that's that's where Vic and Shade graduated high school. So that's why we lived there for so long, is because we were like trying to stay long enough for everybody to actually go to the same high school. But like by this point in our lives, all of us had already become the type of person that, you know, expects things to change all the time. I guess Shade's different. Shade is a little bit more rooted in. He's had the same friends since high school. You know, like he's known the same people. He's never really tried to leave Virginia Beach, or I should say Hampton Roads, the way that you know, I've been all over now. But yeah, so this is the period I really got heavily into anime, and it's also when I started my anime blog. So I mentioned that I was reinventing myself all the time around here. So between the ages of 14 and 16, I changed my name constantly. I was still kind of using Tycall Ultimate occasionally, but I had changed it to That One Odd Dude for a while. I became Dark Slate Blue. I think I had, or no, Tycall Blue. It was Tycall Blue, and all of my writing I colored in Dark Slate Blue. And then I became Fluorescent Optic Yellow for a short time, Deus Ex Machina for a while. And then finally, in 2006, because of the Bad Religion song 21st Century Digital Boy, I started using that name. All of these names I would have used on the Otaku Boards forum. Like Otaku Boards was the main board I used for all this time. So like 2003 to 6, I was like heavily active on that board. But again, I was a terrible writer. Most of the people there were much older than me. And like I was just like an angry little shit. So like I would kind of ruin my reputation and then try to like reinvent myself, you know? And usually then just kind of fall back into the same habits. Like I would be like, I'm gonna put on this character, and then it'd be like, why am I trying to be a character? I am the same person, you know. That I'd just kind of end up being reveal like, actually it was me all along. They'd be like, we could tell. So yeah, but mostly it was like some variant of Tycall until the point of Digital Boy. And once I became 21st Century Digital Boy, that was when I was like, I think I'm going to hold on this one. And the reason is that I heavily identified by the present tense. Like this, like up until I was in like my early 20s, I didn't like anything old. Like anything older, anything from before I was born, I had no interest. It's funny to say that now because I like so much old shit now, but like I really was not interested in anything old. I wanted everything to be like right now, what's coming out right now, what's happening right now. You know, I don't want to look back at all because the past just felt too big. It felt like there was just like this infinity of the past, and I didn't understand any of it. You know, I couldn't relate to it, so it's just like I don't know. I don't want any of this. Damn, Anon User 2 said a single pill of an SSRI made it harder for me to access my memories or associate with the obsessions I used to have, even though I still somewhat go through them. So the rundown Trixie is doing here is quite interesting. Honestly, and I'll say, again, I'm being very brief. Like, consider how many years of my life I'm summarizing here. So I'm giving you, like, the real highlights. But the reason I can remember all this is that I am self-obsessed, and I've gone back through all of it in my mind hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. Like I just have told myself my story over and over again, and whatever I end up forgetting, I guess wasn't that interesting, or like it doesn't corroborate with the identity that I have built myself, you know. But I have, it's all I have, you know. Like again, I had no heritage. I had no nothing before me, no sense of history at all. This is again why I relate to the Digital Boy name was so important to me. Is like I felt like I had just sprung into being apropos of nothing. Like history had not prepared itself for me. You know, like there wasn't a logical, I wasn't a logical next step of anything is what it felt like. Now I know I was. Now I know the history well enough to know that I am the absolute product of 90s alternative culture. Like just 100%, everything that grunge did. I was born the same year that grunge happened. So the reason that everything before my lifetime feels so weird and different to me is it's all pre-grunge. Grunge changed the aesthetic of like the stuff my parents being big into alternative music, like it changed the aesthetic of alternative culture completely in the 90s. So, you know, Gary, anyone, tell us a little about yourself. Trixie, I was born in Oakland. Yeah, well, again, this is supposed to be a complete profile. It's not a little about myself. This is the story so that everybody knows the story. Who am I? What do I do? Where do I come from? What is this all about? Why am I like this? I want it to be understood so that you could just watch this video and feel like if somebody asks you, like, who's Trixie? What's her deal? You could just send them this and it's the whole fucking thing. If they don't get it after this, they're never going to get it. This is the one place where, like, if you can't figure out what's my deal after I explained it at exhaustive length, you're never going to understand it. So it really is like I've called myself the girl from nowhere. That's one of my AKAs that I haven't really pushed, but girl from nowhere, because I feel like I came literally out of nowhere. I've just but the truth is I came from 90s alternative culture, and I just am the first product of it, like the first matured product of that culture. But like there's more of me, like there are others. I've gone to great lengths to find them, but we exist. There is a generational thing here. And I've seen our effect on the future as well. I know who are the product of us. Anyway. So yeah, I got real into anime. I started calling myself 21st Century Digital Boy when I was 16, living in Virginia Beach. And I spent a lot of time on forums, and on the Mega Tokyo forums, there were a lot of people who had WordPress blogs. So I started up a WordPress blog, originally just called Digital Boys Anime Blogging. And I also had a free website called Digital Boy Reviews, which was also my email address. Still is an email address I use all the time because all my old accounts are still hooked up to it. But yeah, Digital Boy Reviews came from 21st Century Digital Boy, being a reviewer. Hey, it's the burger.
How's your profile going?
I'm taking too long to explain my whole life as usual, as I would expect.
Does sound like you.
It does. What are you doing? How you doing?
I'm almost done with Oppenheimer. Then I'm gonna go to bed.
Oh, Bird's been watching Oppenheimer. Do you want to give a quick Oppenheimer review?
It's a really good movie. I don't know if there was any man who understood the doubts that we should have in the politicians in the world. It's him. Because he gave them the power.
Yeah,
they have today.
The Droppenheimer.
Yeah. I don't know. Now it's I'm at the point where it's after the bomb has been tested and dropped, and it's him trying to rally for communication through all the different countries of what an H-bomb, the next step up from nuclear bomb, would be, and how bad it would be, and that we should not get into an H-bomb arms race, and that happened anyway.
Of course.
Yeah.
You're right, this isn't even my final form. I'm a dragon type Pokemon. I have to get to level like 56 or something before I hit my third evolution.
Jesus Christ.
Trixie is literally level 2. Second stage. This is my Dragonair form, basically. Oh, I hope that doesn't mean I'm gonna get fatter than fuck at the end. Hold on. Let's use a different Pokemon.
Well, you could be like Dino.
When does Hatterene revolve?
42 or 48. I don't remember which one.
What microphone is that? It sounds good. This is an AT4040. Hooked up to a Scarlet 2i2 interface. The whole rig will cost you like $450.
Tell me you don't want to be that little guy.
Oh, he's adorable. Dino.
Look, he turns into that.
That's pretty cool. The Hydreigon.
Hydreigon.
I sure am a Hydreigon. What's is Flygon like a level 50 evolution type thing?
Trapinch, Vibrava, and Flygon. I don't know. Right? Am I thinking that right? Trapinch is the first one. Yeah. I don't know. 45.
I want to read you something real quick. This will be funny. Let's go back to like my first ever blog posts. I've reached this point in my history where I'm talking about starting my anime blog. I want people to understand how fucking bad my writing was. Here's a Simone review. I've reviewed this anime again, kind of, over the years. Recommended it, rather.
This post is very old and no longer reflective of my opinions or writing style.
I went through and put that on every post in like 2010. Like, I was already so embarrassed by my writing like 2 years later that I already was like updating it to be like, oh, okay, this sucks. All right. The fact that my first few posts have already left the main page may be evidence that I talk too much, XD. I get the feeling I repeat myself sometimes, so I'm gonna, spelled like Gunna the rapper, get down to brass tacks today.
Oh my God,
brass
sorry.
tacks with an X, you know.
Quick aside, I watched an episode of House today where Mos Def was the patient.
Oh my God.
Mos Def, it was a pretty good episode, actually. He did a good job. He had locked-in syndrome, which is where people think or rather, you're in a coma, but you're very, very aware of everything that's happening to you. You can still sometimes move your eyes and see and stuff. And so it's just like, towards the end of the episode, it's like the patient, Mos Def, and House in this weird, like, fever dream thing that's happening, and they're having a conversation that they're not really having. But it's Mos Def going like, no, you got to tell my wife I wasn't cheating on her. It's like, whoa, huh? There's a lot going on here. But it's a pretty fun episode.
House gets really weird.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think House has always been pretty weird.
All right, let me continue reading this. As usual, I'm a little late with this series, but I can't help but love it. It's uber unique. Plus, the story is not boring.
You want me to read it?
Yeah, sure.
I'm
starting right
okay.
here.
It takes the role of a serious sci-fi anime like Gundam or the like, while it features less battles, I care about it a lot more.
I had not seen
I've
any
never been
Gundam.
able to get into the Gundam series simply because they take themselves so seriously. While I do like serious anime, if I don't like the characters, that ruins the
I'm so confused.
atmosphere.
The only Gundam I would have seen would have been G Gundam, which doesn't take itself seriously
You mean
at all.
Gundam?
And then, well, I guess I would have seen little bits of War in the Pocket and the original show on Adult Swim. If I had only ever heard the dub of the original show, I could see why I thought it was like shit.
I'm gonna.
Yeah.
I love the cast of Simone.
Simone?
Yeah.
Okay.
There are enough characters that I can hate half and love half, and my favorites are all super cute.
It's supposed
You're
to
supposed to spell it with the W in front of the L.
I couldn't even. I did not spell check anything back then, but it's not even spelled correctly by garbage trash baby internet slang.
Eru-chan is probably my favorite thus far, but the silver-haired girl and the younger one with the blue hair are cool too. Most of the originals are bastards, and I think that was done on purpose, though the one girl with the dark purple hair makes up for it. I've never been much for the strong silent types, but I admire her responsible nature.
It's so bad that I still talk like this. I still can't ever remember the characters' names. I'm just like the chick with the purple hair, but like reading it in writing, it's especially bad.
Maybe that's
like,
going to be your third evolution, is remembering people's names.
Maybe. I mean, my anime list didn't exist yet when I wrote this, so I could not have just opened it up and looked up the name of the characters like I can now.
I mean, you could have looked up the name of the characters.
I would have had to go to the episode and like scroll through and find them, but I'm also confused. Was I not done with? I guess I wasn't done with the show. It doesn't say what episode I'm on. It's just like, oh, this is my favorite so far. Fucking how far am I?
And of course, let's not forget the tons of girl-on-girl action.
By which I mean like kissing and touching hands, by the way. There's no like...
Is there more girl-on-girl action than that? I didn't know that lesbianism went further than that. I thought it was just kissing and handling.
It might be like an implication.
Have you ever
of
seen
sex.
Moral Oral's portrayal of gay people? I mean, I don't know if there's more than one, but the one that I'm aware of, it's Moral comes across like two little gay boys out in the forest, and they're just like going, "You're nice, you're nice, you're nice, you're nice."
All right, girl on girl action.
I wish they wouldn't talk about one becoming a man all the time. Why not be lovers and both stay women? It really took you this long to be trans.
Dude, I didn't know what it was. Okay, I didn't know you could just do it.
It makes for better fan fiction afterward. LOL. Anywho, I'll surely have a full review once I finish watching it. Hopefully before the subs disappear. Edit. Also, I changed the header to better fit my style.
What did I mean by hopefully before the subs disappear? Like, was I assuming it was going to get copyright struck? Like the show would get cease and desisted or something? I know I watched Simone in like a fucking tiny box window 240p on Crunchyroll back when it was an illegal streaming site.
Crunchyroll was an illegal streaming site?
You don't know about this?
No.
Thank God we're on my anime blog that's been around forever.
God.
Shugo Kara and the legalization of Crunchyroll. Let's see. 2009, January 8th. If you follow the anime industry, or alternatively are a follower of Omoikane, then you've likely read about the legitimization of Crunchyroll. To summarize what has happened, the anime streaming site Crunchyroll made a deal with TV Tokyo that at the start of 2009, they would delete all anime that they didn't have permission to show, licensed or otherwise, and only stream shows with legal permission. What has this led to, and what has changed? Now, I will tell you, in 2007, Crunchyroll was the only site where you could find everything that had been subtitled. And you had to pay to full screen your video. Yeah, that's right. The reason Crunchyroll was able to become mainstream is they already had a payment implementation. Out of all the illegal streaming sites, they were the only one that already knew how to take people's money. So as soon as they said, we'll just clean all the illegal shit off and do it through legal channels, they just already had the stuff in place. They already had memberships. They already people with memberships, you know? So yeah, they were like the illegal site. Like they're the ultimate illegal streaming site, basically. The king of them all. Because back then, if you were looking for anime, your best bets were YouTube, which had a lot more than it does now, but usually they were broken into parts because you could only upload like 12 minutes or whatever, like a certain size of file. And then Vimeo and Vio would have some stuff. Vio was pretty good for dodging content ID for a really long time. But like Crunchyroll was the only place that had Simone. That's why I watched it there. I didn't want to watch it in a tiny little fucking box, you know, but like I also didn't want to pay for it. So yeah, they were a heavily illegal site. In early 2007, I had only ever heard of torrents, and the only streaming site I knew of besides YouTube was Crunchyroll. Back then, unless you were a paid user, you could only watch in a tiny video with horrible quality, as you can see in some of my blog's early screenshots. Okay. Oh, they've also got photo bucket watermarks on them. I can't help but notice. But yeah, look at how, even though it's tiny, it's also shit quality. Like it's shit even for being at that size. Wait, how does this exist? Why does it look like this? But how does this exist apart from this? Well, now I'm confused. This is like an alternate. Because, okay, so my blog.
Are you telling me a website can exist if you don't update the WordPress plugins?
This is fascinating to me. Well, because my blog was originally Digital Boys Anime Blog, and then it became Euphoric Field. And then I started paying for hosting, and it became Fuzakenna. And then I stopped paying for hosting, and it became My Sword is Unbelievably Dull, which it still is. How can two of it exist, though? Like this, one of the older instances of it still exists from 2009 back? Okay, it's because it is just a different site, I guess. I don't know. I don't know how this works. Anyway, I guess I have two of my old blog, but one stops at 2009 and one stops at me losing my password in like 5 years ago. Anyway, obviously I have sharpened my sword now. My sword is much sharper than it was when I had this blog. And by that I mean I've taken a nail file to my dick and just ground it down until it's fucking like sharp as a blade. Anyway.
Sharp as a blade?
Yeah. Like you just like sand it, you know, until like take like sanding, just like pulverize it flat until it's like a Until it's like a
Wait,
sword.
That's not as sharp as a sword. That's non-existent. Swords.
Well, no, like you just would like sharpen it into like you'd flatten it into like a sword shape, so like it's sharp at the edges. Anyway.
Okay. Is this the transgender?
Yes. All right. The sound was very muddy, and anytime there was a rain effect, the sound would warp beyond recognition. Wow, I don't even remember that. I'm glad I wrote this all down. However, in early 2008, Crunchyroll made an interesting deal with the animation studio Gonzo that was near unprecedented. Gonzo started subtitling their episodes and letting Crunchyroll stream them simultaneous to their airing on TV in Japan, known as simulcasting. For 24 hours, anyone could watch the episodes for free, and afterward they could pay to see the episodes whenever they wanted. Crunchyroll added the option to watch videos in high quality for free to their site, as well as the ability to watch full screen, both of which had required payment before. They also eventually added high quality options. This plan seemed to have worked since Gonzo has continued to simulcast their anime on Crunchyroll since. Later in the year, Crunchyroll made the same deal with TV Tokyo, where they would be able to simulcast a lot more popular anime for free, as well as allow streaming of some previously aired shows with the network's permission. In order to do this, though, Crunchyroll had to promise to delete any anime they didn't have permission to show. On January 1st, 2009, the plan was initiated. On the negative side of things, this meant they had to delete classic shows like Ashita no Joe, Rose of Versailles, and Legend of Galactic Heroes, which they were the only ones streaming. People looking for these rare anime will now have to turn to torrents and IRC chat. Not anymore. However, the positives far outweigh the negatives. The free stream sites are far higher quality than any other streams on the internet. In addition, all videos are soft subbed so that you can watch them subbed raw or for some videos with different language subtitles, a feature that's sure to come in full force in the future. Naturally, though, a profit has to be made somewhere, so subscribers are able to watch videos in 480p high definition, watch simulcast episodes instantly. Everyone else has to wait for a week, and then watch with no advertisements. So these happen in the beginning of episodes on regular streams. Memberships come in monthly. Yeah. So this is what had just happened at the time. And then I started talking about Shugo Kara because they had it on there. And I was like, hey, they're actually subbing Shugo Kara. But I only ended up watching a few episodes. So yeah, that's what happened with Crunchyroll back then. And so that's the kind of anime blogging I was doing for like 2007 until 2012. And again, I just explained how like I changed the name of the blog a whole bunch because like initially my writing just sucked. Then I became friends with a bunch of good writers like Ghost Lightning and Otosan and Lali Kitsune and the people who made this site called Oi Hayaku. And like, I know I'm forgetting a whole bunch of people who are also great. AJ the Fourth. But like those are the people who had the most impact on me personally are the ones I just named. But there were tons of anime bloggers I was reading and communicating with. Actually, a lot of the ones I'm the closest with wrote entries in this Diary of an Anime Lived series. This might have been the biggest like blogging project I did from mid-2009, where it was just about writing articles about how your life was the same as an anime you saw. So I started with Evangelion. This girl called A Day Without Me did one on Aquarium, and I think they talk about this one's about Utena. I had one about Manabi Strait. Some of these, unfortunately, a bunch of these articles no longer exist because these people shut their blogs down. Ghost Lightning had one, Ultra Eternal Blackout, Eternal Sunrider, Chi is cool. I think she's still on Twitter. So a lot of these people who stopped writing anime blogs are now Twitters. Like Shinmaru is like just a Twitter now, but they're still around, still talking about anime, still having reactions. But yeah, as you can see, a lot of people wrote entries in this series over the years. The last one I did was actually in my video era, about A Tale of Memories, and that would have been in 2016. So yeah, for like 7 years, this was a blogging series. And I did a lot of like series-based stuff, but just like, you all know how well I keep a series going. Like all of that started back in the blogging days. I have tons of incomplete blogging series. Either because I like started covering a show episode by episode and got like 3 episodes in, like with Utena, or just the projects would get way out of scope. I'd be tasking myself to like watch too much shit or do too much writing than compared to what is like reasonable to get done.
Probably find all those deleted posts on the Internet Archive since you have the links on your blog.
Which deleted? Oh yeah, the ones that these guys made. Yeah. I guess maybe. If anybody wanted to, if this is series, if you want to have a good like cry about anime, like most of these are incredibly emotional stories about people's like, you know, lowest moments in life connecting with anime, including mine. You know, they're all pretty emotional posts. You going to bed?
I'm gonna go poop, but then I'm going to bed.
Have a good poop.
I will. Thank you. Have a good profile.
I don't know why I've had this like Google Doc open like I was going to write something down this whole time. Obviously, this is too scattershot, too big brain. Can you super chat? You can super chat whenever the hell you want. You can super chat fucking constantly. I don't need to be doing anything that doesn't make me money. This is all a fucking huge waste of time if there's no super chats. Anyway, blah 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 blue. Yeah, so I was doing this stuff, writing this anime blog. I had a few anime blogs, aside from the fact that the name kept changing. Well, most of it's been ported over here. Like I would make other blogs that had like their own themes sometimes. Like I had a manga blog for a while called Se Dice Bisante. But then I ended up porting all those posts into this blog eventually. Let's see. Yeah, this stuff. Oh. How to make your physical copy doujinshi readable without learning Moon. Simply buy these little stickers, cut them to the size of your speech bubbles, and write freehand what it says in the speech bubbles. I don't think I actually ended up finishing this project. I think I did enough of this to show the idea and then got tired of the fact that my handwriting sucks. And it wasn't really making it readable. But yeah, I would like do like little manga reviews and stuff like this. So these are all imported from the manga review site. And then I had other just like conceptual blogs. I would just make blogs as like a force of habit. I had like 30 WordPress blogs. I would show them all to you if I could log into this fucking account. I lost the password ages ago and have never been able to get back in. But on this WordPress account, I have like 30 blogs. Most of them never got used for anything. Here's all the blogs I associated myself with, like the people I think are really cool. So I would recommend any of this stuff. This dude, I'm pretty sure, died in some kind of conflict in Thailand in 2014, but he was probably the greatest, like, underground anime writer. The Leiji Matsumoto, expert to end all experts. Great Utena writer. Wrote a ton of amazing Utena posts that I would highly recommend reading. But they have not shown their face online since 2014. I think they are probably dead. Listless Inc. was cool. This person I got into there was a anime blogger popularity contest happening one time, and I campaigned really hard and I made it to the quarterfinals, and ultimately I lost to Listless Inc. And I was like, you know, I'm okay with this because I like Listless Inc. So yeah, I did a heavy amount of anime blogging from 2007 to 2012. And the period in 2010, I think, is when I bought, or like mid 2009, I bought domain hosting and I changed the blog name to Fuzakenna. I think this would have been right when I was starting college. And like I was planning to try to make money off of it. I was like, I don't want to get a job. I don't want to have to keep going to school. How do I try to make money off of the fact that I felt like my blog was getting good? I was starting to gain more readership. I was writing posts that people actually kind of liked. You know, I was getting comments. I was like, how do I get advertisers? How do I run ads? I ran one ad for JList, which is a very popular, they always did banner ads on like every blog. And they had like a, you know, we'll give you 10% of whatever you make. Or whatever we make through your link. So one person bought like a $90 statue through my link once. So I would have made $9, but I think you had to hit a threshold of like $100 before they actually send you anything. So I never actually got any money off of that. That's closest I got to making money. There was one time like some weird pop-up sales site like gave me like $5 to do like a little post ad about them, and I did it mostly saying that it was obviously a scam. But they gave me the money anyway, so that's cool. Aura Luna says, Mr. Enter most shameful predator hunt vid if it's okay. You want me to react to this? Is it only 2 minutes long? Mr. Enter most shameful predator hunt. This video is an hour and 40 minutes. Are we just watching the very start? All right, what is
Becca
this?
Starlight. I'd assembled a team and discovered that she was worse than I had ever thought possible. We uncovered everything, from underpaying workers to providing cover for the predator Necopon, to engaging in predatory actions against minors herself.
This is
In the
overwhelming.
intervening months, I grew unsatisfied calling the case closed, as there were still questions that needed to be addressed. What has Rebecca been up to since March? Why did the Necopan investigation last so long? What's the deal with Ray Rance? What was anyone thinking during the infamous Rosa Ray Ramsey Senate
I have no fucking idea what he's talking about.
call? And most prominently, who is Mystic Mongrel? What did she do? These questions and more will be answered in this video. I've been investigating this story for weeks now, and it is one of the most convoluted things that I've ever experienced.
Yeah,
If
it
I
sounds
were to
like
talk
it.
about this, it'd be rejected for being too unbelievable. Due to the complexity
Okay, just tell me the story. What the fuck happened here? Grooming, abuse, transphobia. All right.
How did we get here? In early 2024,
I ended up realizing this was a really bad idea.
Here at 4, where were you, you lazy piece of garbage? To take a little sleep, because
This is fucking intense. Why is it like so intense? I get you said it's a parody of Danganronpa. I guess I don't know Danganronpa well enough to comprehend. I've never played Danganronpa or watched it. I've seen like the first episode of the anime, but Danganronpa is really not my aesthetic. Like super duper not my aesthetic. So I've always kind of avoided it. I know Bird enjoys it. He likes the games. I think he played the games. That was mostly overwhelming and incomprehensible to me. I'm sorry to say. I'm sure it's interesting. It looks interesting, but that was it was a lot to take in, and it made no sense. It felt like a strange blast of noise, you know. Anyhow, getting back to this, you know, I was pretty focused on anime blogging for a while. Like I was still on forums probably up until the point when I like bought hosting and all that, and then I was pretty much just all in on anime blogging. Let's try to find that era. Let's try to find the Fusakenna era, because you'll see stuff where like I'm posting like a crazy amount of posts in a month, you know, like 33 posts a month, 41 posts a month, 25, you know. I would slow down, speed up. Some months, like a lot of these are kind of just short, but then sometimes a lot of them are kind of long, you know. November 2010, it looks like I basically gave up. What did I write? What was the one post I wrote? Ori no Imoto 8, an emergency episodic blog post. Well, this is embarrassing. I'm supposed to be on hiatus until December 3rd, but Ori no Imoto 8 warrants a post from me. And besides, there's no point in waiting. I've got no room in my December schedule. So here's a My Sword is Unbelievably Dull appetizer. That's a lot of words that I don't know what I mean by them. In Ori no Imoto 8, Kirino's novel, which she just started writing in the last episode, has already become a bestseller and is getting an anime adaptation. The downside is that the adaptation is being rushed out as a replacement for another series that dropped from the time slot, so the producers are desperate to get things together fast, and it will probably be a less than great low-budget mess. As anime fans, I'm sure when we hear about a rushed and botched novel adaptation, some immediate examples come to mind. Most likely Tsukihime, which can be enjoyed by fans that they pretend that it's not related to the original work at all, since it really is a good anime. Indeed, adapting works can very often lead to negative results, or positive results that still piss off the fans, and it's interesting to see how the original creator is allowed to affect the production in any way. Supposedly, Ida Yu had a contributing role to the Gunslinger Girl Il Teatrino anime, which makes me wonder how it still managed to suck so horribly. Kirino has a long list of ideas for her anime adaptation, which read like a level of fantasy that I almost couldn't buy if it weren't meant to be humorous. She wants alternating openings and endings, has a cast list, ideas for staff members, and expects a 2-core show that, from the sound of things, would carry a hefty budget. I can hardly blame her for going so far, though. This is what happens when an anime fan is given an anime. An anime fan has seen a million anime. They know what's good, what they like, and what they want to see, and they can't help but be disappointed if they don't get all of that, because they're anime fans. Upon watching the series, they'll ultimately hold its quality up in comparison to their own favorites, and when it's not up to snuff, they can't help but feel bad about it. This is their work that's not as good as they know it could have been. It's not for anyone's lack of knowing what works, but for the cutthroat nature of tight production budgets and schedules. The sad part is that most things will only be adapted once. If the there are so many words I had to relearn when I started talking to an audience. If the adaptation sucks, then we're all stuck with it. On rare occasions that a series gets so huge that it can afford another adaptation, we'll be lucky enough to see it done right, but otherwise it just sucks. Type Moon is the perfect scope to view all this through, as they've had many adapted works. Tsukihime, an absurdly long game, had most of its content cut to fit into 12 episodes. Fate Stay Night, meanwhile, managed to get 24 episodes, but has suffered from an incredibly weak production and still couldn't have crammed all of its content into one series. But over the years, Type Moon titles have gotten huge. Fate Stay Night has become a massive franchise and one of the most popular works of the past decade among otaku. Because of that, when it came time to adapt Type Moon's classic Kara no Kyokai, they got the best production imaginable. Ufotable pulled out all the stops in producing 7 whole movies with top-grade visuals, music, and acting, and more importantly, they worked directly with the original creators to create the most perfect vision of the work. According to an interview with Kinoko Nasu and Takashi Takeuchi in the first English edition of Faust, Ufotable was willing to go so far as to lengthen the films to include elements that Nasu felt were necessary to his vision. With that power behind Type Moon franchises, we also got treated to a new movie adaptation of one of the Fate Stay Night arcs, in a rare case where a fuck-up adaptation got redeemed. But on the flip side of the coin, we're still probably never see a Tsukihime adaptation, which will always be a small pang of despair in the hearts of fans, and surely the creators. I've written out extensive anime plans in the past. One of the things that helps me conceptualize my stories is to envision them as anime, as I get dreamily lost in the production details. Like Kirino, I'll plan out interchanging opening and ending songs and come up with the seiyuu for my characters. In fact, I still do this, by the way. In fact, I have one story wherein I listed each of my favorite seiyuu and created characters that would be my dream role for them to play. Like literally Sunops, I already have like the first 2 OPs and EDs that I would ideally want in mind. You know.
I'm top dog, and I like to swim in the dark.
I mean, how could this not be the opening theme, right? I'm top dog, like the best that you have. That's obviously the opening theme, right? And then what had I picked as the first ending theme? Or maybe this was supposed to be the end. No, this is the opening. All right, whatever. This is a silly subject. Anyway, also like Kirino, I hope to one day have an adaptation of my written works. Unlike her, however, I would have turned down any offers until my work had reached the highest level of popularity that it could without an adaptation, so that I'd net a more carefully produced and higher budgeted work over which I could have more control. I'm thinking real smart over here. Kirino's list of demands to the series creators was as painful as it was fun, and I loved the reactions of the director recognizing her passion, even as he knew that she was totally misunderstanding the way an anime production works. It was harsh to see her taken down, but as a production otaku, it also made me squeal with joy to watch. Later in the episode, Kuroneko gets her crowning moment of awesome up to this point, delivered beautifully by my current seiyuu obsession, Hanazawa Kana. Imagine, like, talking about Hanakana like she's like new, you know, like it's a like, ooh, my current obsession, Hanakana, like, yeah, yours and everyone else's on the fucking planet Earth. My eyes have been on Kuroneko since the last episode, and in this one, she's enthralled me more than any of the other characters in the series, taking the whole show up a point with her. This was all around a delightful episode that may be hard for the series to top in my eyes. Addendum, I would so watch an anime about a girl attracting a flock of Imoto. I think that exists now, right? Isn't that basically like what Crushing Over Magical Girls is or whatever? So yeah, obviously my writing was much, much better by 2010 than it had been in 2007. And that is largely the product of me trying to write like good writers, you know, trying to emulate not just like Ghost Lightning and those people, but also their influences. You know, I was trying to emulate Roger Ebert. I was trying to emulate fucking just any kind of criticism I had read that was good. Basically, anything I had read that I thought was. I used to read lots of internet reviews of like albums and anime and like people's opinions on forums, and anybody who wrote decently, like I would copy their exact phrasings. I would just totally vacuum up everything I found. But that was around 2010. Around then would have been when like pretty much my online existence had become just the blog. It was just me trying to get people to read the blog, mostly through commenting on other people's blogs. And also there was a lot of before Twitter, we had stuff like Google Reader, where in your RSS feed, you could have shared feeds with certain groups of people. So say like you put kind of like what Google Plus would later do with circles. And we tried to do that with like when Google Plus first came out, all the anime bloggers had Google Plus, and we were all like, making circles out of our anime blog friends and posting just anime shit to them and that kind of stuff. But it never caught on. But before that, with Google Reader, it would be like you'd have a group of people that had a shared RSS, and then you could all leave comments on those posts inside that RSS feed. So like, as opposed to people going straight in and commenting on the post, they could be more passive aggressive and cliquish and talk about it with their own friends instead of on the actual public post, which, of course, was mostly a way for people to talk shit about each other without having to then argue with them in their comments. But yeah, so that was the old blogging days. And earlier Gary always was like, well, we got to get to the Philippines trip. Yeah, I went to the Philippines in 2011, I believe, when I was 19, to go see Ghost Lightning, who by then I'd known for like several years. Pretty much been my mentor and probably the person I had mentioned the most times, like to my parents, which is why they had a conception of who he was and were willing to let me go do that, And they were thinking I was going to go and like party, because my dad, when he was in the military, he had been to the Philippines, and for him that had been like basically a giant rave. Not my speed. I'm not that type of person, I was still a virgin. Everybody thought that would change. It did not. I spent most of the time hanging out, reading about criticism, reading books that Ghost Lightning had, learning from him about criticism and about anime. About stuff like Macross and Gundam. He explained the whole Silmarillion to me, because he wrote his master's thesis on the Silmarillion. He, taught me all kinds of shit, took me to malls and conventions and stuff. I met a ton of Filipino anime bloggers while we were there. This image is my Terra Online character, and specifically it's from me breaking the world. Actually, I'm glad you asked, because that is the most popular post on my blog, is my Terra solo leveling guide. This is like the last and most important thing I did before becoming a video maker. No, I must have spelled it wrong. Where the fuck? God damn it. It's before all this. I love my pink gay elf. This is also a Terra Online post. I'll talk about that one too. God damn it. How fucking far back is this shit? Or is it like... Okay, here we go. Yeah. This was the most important blog post I have ever made before becoming a YouTuber. And it is my Terra solo leveling guide. It is so important because people actually used it. This was linked on the side of the Terra subreddit for a long time. So, I was the first person to solo level to 1 to 60 in Terra that I know of, and like create a guide for it. And the reason this was necessary is that every so often the game, if you're playing through the story mode, it would expect you to go do a group dungeon at some point. And all right, Anon user 2 with $10 says, watch that Anime Snobs video called Anime and Art #1 Modern Art. Don't worry, we will do that. That sounds like fun. But as I say here, if you skip a dungeon, there'll be a lot of experience you need to fill in, not just from the dungeon itself, but from the story quests that you'll miss out on by skipping them. Story quests provide by far the most experience out of any quest in Terra, but they'll also send you to almost every dungeon. Some story quests activate once you reach a certain level, and others only activate by doing the previous quest in the chain. So, for instance, if you skip a story quest at level 19, which sends you into a dungeon, you won't be able to do the next quest in the chain. But upon reaching level 20, you may unlock a new chain of quests. So this is basically my guide of like how to go quickly level yourself to that next level without having to go to the dungeon at each different place that this becomes difficult. And also showing off my fits all throughout the game is a big part of this, you know, because my character had the fashionista title, which that was also something I influenced in a small way because it was bugged. I literally like tried to get the fashionista title and it didn't work, and I had to like submit a report to get it fixed, which you get for like dyeing your clothes 30 times or something like that. But yeah, so I wrote this extensive guide on the game, and then I did another guide of a sorts on how to reach this big sky whale. Yeah, Adventures in Terra, Chasing Moby Dick. And I kind of recreated this journey in the Sword Art Online video. So if you go watch my original Sword Art Online analytical diatribe, it's just set to footage of me playing this game. And most of what I'm doing in that video is trying to recreate what I had done in this post. But the footage is not as good. But it starts with me. I'm hanging out in this town, you know, and looking up at this mountain. And so I wanted to see if I could go up that mountain. And so here I am at the top of the mountain, looking back down over the town, having made it. And while I'm up there, I start noticing that like there's so many other mountains I could potentially travel to. And at some point I noticed this giant sky whale thing, and I'm like, I want to go touch that. So I started like just scaling the level geography until I found myself completely out of bounds. Multiple times, you know, doing things like standing on the edge of 2 biomes, just basically finding all these places that you're technically not really supposed to stand, but I wanted to see this fucking thing up close. So I found myself at all these places, and here, when I was truly outside of the world, I angled the camera so that it was just me in the sky. And so that is the image, that's the header. And then my second character was my pink gay elf, Chris Chiaki. All of my characters in this game were named after Garzy's Wing characters also. I don't know where I got this Migusta banner from. So yeah, this was 2012. So basically, again, all I had really been doing is, you know, writing this anime blog. And after I graduated high school, I went straight to college. I dropped out like multiple times. I was super depressed. I saw therapy for a while. I got medicated for a while. The medication kind of just made me stop panicking so much about not doing anything, as opposed to like making me start doing things. And then around then is when I went to the Philippines, came back. I thought I would end up getting a job after that, but I just was so like, it really was just a matter of not knowing who I was trying to be. Like, what am I looking for in this life? I just didn't understand what was out there for me, you know, and where to go to find it. Like, what could I do to self-satisfy? Like, the only thing I enjoyed was writing my anime blog. So pretty much this was all I thought about, was like, what can I do for the anime blog? You know, what could I do to maybe make it take off or make me some kind of profit? And like pretty much up through 2010, I had not been thinking that the blog could make me any money. I just thought nobody was ever going to pay for this. Like, I thought the only way I would make money is if I got hired by like Anime News Network or something. I applied, I got rejected, you know, so I was like, okay, the mainstream's not going to take me. And I can't grow a big enough like niche audience to make money off of it. So I might be fucked in this regard. But I was also trying to be an author. And up through 2010, I had been trying constantly to like write a story. But I just like, writing is incredibly frustrating. Like, if you're not doing it based on some level of like formula, like some level of, well, I know this works because I've seen other people do it. Like, Sunops is Shonen Jump formula. It doesn't necessarily read like it because it's not a comic, you know. It's a but I'm using the framework of how like a JoJo part would start, basically, you know. So because that way I don't have to just invent whole cloth. How is a story supposed to begin? You know, and like back when I was a teenager, I was always trying to do that and just being like, what am I trying to describe here? And the one book I wrote like a significant amount of was Dark Dreams at the End of the World, or Scarlet City. I can't remember the full fucking name. I ended up going with Tales from the End of the World, Scarlet City. Yeah, that's what the first book was called. And I wrote 50,000 words, but there's incomplete parts of it. I did an audiobook of it once. I'm not sure even where the fuck to find that. Let's see if it's on here. If this links to it somehow. Doesn't seem like it. Come on. Maybe Tales from the End of the World. That this looks like it could be it. No, this does not seem to be it. God damn it. I don't know. I don't know how to find the fucking book anymore, but I never finished it. There were just like certain parts I didn't know how to write, and that kind of really discouraged me from writing fiction for like a long time. Just feeling like I could not finish that book. I was like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, I don't think I'm going to be able to be a writer if I can't finish my book. And so that was when I started really going all in on the blog and being like, maybe I could be an analytical writer. You know, maybe I'll take off in that avenue. And in 2012, I had kind of lost the energy for anime. Like, I wasn't that interested in what was going on in anime. My friends were more into games, and particularly fighting games. What am I looking for here? I think there should be a category for media journal. This might be what I want. Yeah, okay.
2015
Jesus fucking Christ, why?
lackluster year for me in terms of me.
Why did that autoplay? Daily Motion, you motherfucker. Yes, okay, this is what I'm looking for. So this is where I was at toward the end of at the start of 2012, I got really into My Little Pony and really into video games. So like, I want to say toward the very beginning of 2012 was when me and Shade marathon My Little Pony. I wrote about it pretty extensively on here. And I ended up consuming every piece of Brony media. There's a post on this blog. I don't even want to open it because it's such a huge post, where I just I had spent 2 months going through all of Equestria Daily and watching everything, and anything I liked, I collected it into one post. So there's a post on here. It's like any piece of Brony media from 2010 to 2012 that I thought was worth a shit. I collected it all in one gigantic post on this blog. And then that inspired me to start doing this media journal series, where basically every month I would just collect everything I thought was cool that month. Cat's Millionaire, which is Debbie McCallan, you know, half of Black Dresses now. Obviously loved her work back then. Just like whatever anime I saw some of, you know, I played Doom for the first time. Donald Glover's Weirdo. Game Grumps had just launched. That was going to be a big influence. I first started finding gaming YouTubers like the Gaming Brit Show, Hyperbit Hero, Investigative Journalism. This is a shockingly how many influential people I talk about in just this random post. Zero Punctuation was not new to me, but I was just like reviewing the episodes I had seen recently, I guess. So yeah, this is literally, I would just go through every month and every single thing that I consumed. I wrote like a short review of it. And that was pretty much all I was writing for a little while in 2012.
2015
God damn
was
it
a
with
pretty
that. Yeah, I get it. 2015 sucked. You don't have to be so fucking loud about it. I kept this going for early 2013, but this is also where I started making the Brony videos. Now, remind you, I had a YouTube channel already. This YouTube channel came into creation the same year as my anime blog, 2007. And for the early part of it, it was dedicated to Project Awesomeness, a sketch comedy series that was inspired mostly by Monty Python and The Whitest Kids You Know. And, we did like 15 episodes of it in probably the first like 2 years of having this channel. Then I started using this for like school projects, one about aquatic biology, a Japanese project. This was when me and my cousin Boyd were determined that we wanted to become filmmakers. We were obsessed with like indie filmmakers, anybody who had just like done it by themselves by getting a camera and getting a crew together and making their own shit. And we wanted to be like that. We did not know anything. We knew less than nothing about how to do that. But we convinced my dad to get this really nice, expensive camera that we had no idea how to use. The reason this looks like this is like, we didn't understand color correction, that like everything, like professional cameras shoot flat and you have to like do stuff to it in post. I was using Microsoft Movie Maker. I really was way out of my depth with this, but this was shot on the nice camera. You can see like the jitter from the editing, like the program could not handle the files. Like, yeah, I was in way over my head trying to make videos. We also didn't know how to do effects, so that kind of sucked. But luckily, where me and Boyd failed, Victor picked up the slack because he would graduate high school and go to college and be in a film program, and now he makes his entire living as a cinematographer. Victor now owns much nicer cameras than the one that filmed this. He has way more of a sense of how to use them than anybody else. So on this channel, we've also got a bunch of like Victor's film school videos. Like this is stuff that he made in college. Pretty much the cutest thing that's ever fucking happened. Highly recommended watching Mary's Adventure. So yeah, this is the era where like Victor's in college. I'm doing my anime blog. I'm doing stuff like Double Down reviews, and we would occasionally do a Project Awesomeness anytime we had an idea. A bunch of them are missing because of copyright. We used a lot of copyrighted music back then, not knowing it would be a problem one day. And then a little thing called Trial of the Golden Witch starts happening around here. So how did this happen? It really kind of started from this band, the Fridays. This is the guy over there was our friend Arn. This is Brandon Tolentino. This is Marcus. And this is a guy named Herbert. These guys started coming over to our house to practice because they're, Marcus's friends. And I ended up, becoming friends with Brandon, not really as much the other two guys. Briefly, I had a stint as the vocalist of this band, but they were very disorganized. And this dude kind of ran off with a girl to Vegas, and the thing was kaput. But one time, Arn and Marcus came over and we all did an improvised album together called Phantasmagoria of Improv Bullshit. And that had songs that sounded like this. So this is Arn. Arn is the one playing guitar in this, and then we're all just kind of singing around him. The guy was a killer guitar player, but unfortunately also a fuckboy. Jesus Christ, my ears. Okay. Most of them were like very funny songs. Anyway, I think he was only on that first one, and then usually Marcus would be playing guitar on other albums. So, for instance, here's Marcus. Or it would be Marcus is playing one thing and Tolentino is playing another thing, and they're both on guitars. And usually they're just completely improvising, and I'm just also improvising, singing over it. But we would make all kinds of, basically every time I could get everybody over to my house to play music, I would hit record whatever anybody did. And if I liked it enough, I would release it. So that's definitely Brandon Tolentino playing that riff. And then Marcus just fucking around.
Mays here with an amazing offer you can't refuse.
And that's our friend Josh doing a Billy Mays impression. So yeah, we made like 20 albums in the first year. It was like 120 songs or something. And I cut together all of my favorites into this best of year one thing for Bandcamp, because all of that had been released on Pure Volume in like 2011, I guess. And so for a while, just whenever my friends got together, we would do these little goofy improv projects, which I think improved over time. They're not nearly as unlistenable. It's all sulfur down. Wait, I started early. I know this song. God damn it. It's all sulfur down here where I'm from. It's all brimstone burning like the sun. Yeah, just improv bullshit, literally. And then, as my friends were less and less interested in doing any of that, this is by the time, like 2013, this is when I now have a YouTube career. So this is like when I became more and more like just doing stuff by myself in my room. And I started experimenting with just making like noise and drones and like, sonic experimentation, a lot of acapella stuff in this era. This is probably the best example of just like all the experimental tricks I learned at the time getting put to use in one place. Sounded like if I had like my mouth had been welded shut, like it was all skin, and I'm trying to like break it open, and then finally at the end it's like ripping open. That's kind of what that sounded like to me. I like how creepy you all find this. I find it really creepy listening back to it now, but at the time I was just like, whatever. These are funny songs. Like, I think I made this when I was working at Target, actually. No, it must have been right afterwards.
Like the first time.
That, or I was holding on to some of these tracks for a while.
This is scary, Connor. I had half a can of Strawberita too when you were talking about anime. I went downstairs.
Boom, boom, down, boom, boom, down, boom, 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 down, boom, boom, down.
All right, I remember this song. I like this one.
3, 4.
Tape up the vent that makes you too warm, and you only get much too cold. Give up the life that makes you too young, and you only get much too old. Well, this is the end for me, my friend. I'm coming home. This is the end for me, my friend. I'm coming home. I'm coming home. Ellen, we're at least 2/3 into my life story already now. This is 2013, so I would be 22 or about to turn 22. And now I'm about to turn 23. So this is 2/3 of my life down. All right, but let's go watch that Anime Snob video that I was paid to critique. Also, I kind of have to use the bathroom. So I'm just going to play the rest of this freaky ass little EP. It only lasts like 2 minutes. When I was a kid, thought I hope to find out when I knew what all lay down. I am now. I never tell you so. We are not alone. Why I ever say so? Oh, 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 hey, actually, I quite like that song still. Tape Up and Alone are my favorites for sure. Okay, wait, what was the name of this snob video that we're supposed to watch? Modern Art. I feel like I'm gonna have to poop, but I'm not ready yet. My stomach's doing that thing where it's like, ooh, get ready. You're shitting soon. And I'm like, uh-oh. Hopefully not too soon. Okay. What's that, Oraluna? This is a great information video by one of your fave anti-tubers. No, I know you're talking about the one you requested. We're going to watch this piece of shit from one of the worst anime YouTubers, that Anime Snob. This is relevant to my backstory also because soon after I started making anime content on YouTube in 2014, I became one of the many people targeted. Basically, anybody who's more popular than that Anime Snob, he will relentlessly make videos about you. Pretty much about your taste being shitty for not being his taste, which is basically Legend of Galactic Heroes is great, which is kind of indisputable. So it's a really easy position to have. But if you like other shows, if you like all that girly shit, all that Snob fired the first, of course, Snob fired the first shot at everyone. Snob's whole existence has been taking shots. Let's see. See how far back he goes. Oh no, is this like a new channel because his old one got killed? There might not be as much on here. I mean, you can already see other anti-tubers' faces, but this definitely doesn't go as far back as our conflict. I've even conflicted with some of the same people as him. Like Chibi Reviews, or that's who this guy was, right? No, not Chibi. This dude, for Neverworld, that guy. But yeah, basically anybody who was more popular than Snob, he made videos about them all the time. I was the only person who like directly reached out to talk to him about it. And we did a 35-minute podcast where it became clear to me that he is just trying to be a wrestling heel. But the problem is that he's not choosing opponents who like want to play the same wrestling match as him, like he's trying to be a wrestling heel against people who do not want to be wrestlers. And in my case, I was like, oh, I would wrestle you, but you're really playing like a different game. Like your opinions are so far off from mine that the two of us arguing, like our audiences don't see eye to eye at all. And, his audience, small as it may be, it's people who agree with him, and my audience is people who agree with me. And it would always just, if it just comes down to a popularity contest, which it does with internet arguing, a guy whose opinions are so out there that not many people are ever going to be on his side, it's not that interesting to fight. It feels like punching down. I tried to create a scenario where it would feel like punching up to go after Snob by telling him that he had more money than me and that I could have more money than him by the end of the year. But no one supported him. No one tried to help him make that not be true. So it's at present, it still feels like punching down, even though I don't even I've barely got money. I've barely made any money. Right now I'm about to get sent my Patreon money. And so I'll probably have $1,000 in the bank, like tomorrow, once my Patreon money shows up. I've spent a lot on travel and food and, mostly just those travel, food, beer, weed, so I've got like $1,000 out of what I've made so far in the last 2 months since having $40 when I started. But no, I'm far from 8K. So, it's possible Snob could still win this contest, but it's just when you hear him talk, it's hard to feel like I'm not punching down at him because
And the Romance definition wars continue as many tasteless casuals are still unable to comprehend the simple concepts, such as this one here who insists no word has only one meaning and that the way I describe romance is not correct. That doesn't make it wrong, you idiot. That only means I am using one of the different definitions.
See, like already, he starts off. This is called Anime and Art #1, Modern Art. So this is the start of a series. But he's like responding to a commenter who's upset about something he said on another video, and he hasn't explained any of that. He just jumped into it, and like I had to infer all of that to understand what he's talking about. But like, what a fucking way to start a video, start a series of videos.
That are using the same
right
word, unless for some.
I don't even hate that. I don't hate that. I'm just saying, wow, it's intense. It's pretty in your face to just like be responding to a comment about something else you said, and you're not even going to tell us what the other thing you said was.
Retarded reason my topic on the subject of romance made you think it was about Greek legends or medieval tales of knights and kings. A similar thing most say about my critique of a show is that anime is an art form, and art cannot be evaluated because it doesn't have a specific definition or style. What appeals to one does not appeal to another, so there is no way to offer a more objective look on it. That means the random doodles a baby draws are equally good as Leonardo da Vinci's paintings. We are going back to the oh so lovely concept of relativism, where nothing has a limited definition, anything can be about everything, and something can be black and white at the same time. And what is the obvious problem this sort of thinking has? There is no conviction. You can't make a point because nothing.
See, relativism is the concept that points of view have no absolute truth or validity, having only relative subjective value. It's like he got to the word no truth and stopped reading. He's like, oh, these people believe that nothing can be true. And it's like, no, they believe that truth has only relative subjective value. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It means that it is, you can say that things are true in as much as you understand them. You cannot understand a thing to be true that is beyond human. That's just too far. It's in the God realm. You're not God. You don't know what's true. You know what seems true. Contextually true is within the framework of what we can understand. If we use the word true to mean absolutely true, it loses meaning so quickly that it, is useless. So we have to use it to mean contextually true. This is just a way to save the word true. Relativism is just a way to make the word true possible in language, as opposed to like nonsense.
Nothing has only one meaning. Do you hear the words that are coming out of my mouth? They can mean anything you like. The reason so many believe in this ludicrous idea is because if you narrow down the definition of something, you are generalizing anything you will say about it to include all other definitions and all other people in general. And as we all know, most people are unique individuals who are not following the public opinion, so it's a mistake to put them all in the same group. Going back to my topic, many didn't even like my dopamine analogy, saying that it is a chemical that does everything. Just like definitions, it is not something limited to one thing, therefore my analogy was also wrong. Never mind how it was there to put it into context, so you won't think.
This is a problem I have with a lot of people who argue on the internet all day, is they feel the need to break down the whole argument back to us. Just make the point. I don't care about... I don't want to go down all of the false paths. Think about it like you're making a maze, right? Or playing a maze, like a two-dimensional maze. If you've never played the maze before, you're probably going to go down a few tangents that lead nowhere, and then you're going to come back to the main point and make your way through. As a person writing a video, you are guiding someone through a maze. You are taking them from the entrance to the exit. You do not need to take them through all of the little extra fucking paths. Because, if there's something cool down there, if there's like a treasure down there you think we need to get, sure. But if it's just like, and then they said this and that wasn't true, I don't fucking care. Just tell me what the point is.
think I am talking about Greek legends, or that I specifically mentioned there are more functions of it, but I will limit the topic to one thing. Listen here, you mindless drones of relativism. When you are thinking about something, you need to have a train of thought if you ever want to reach somewhere. It's a deduction procedure, and if you don't move on rails that move with some sort of logic from point A to point B, you are wasting your time and my patience. This does not make you narrow-minded, it makes you focused. For the same reason.
See, that's he kind of just explained my complaint with the video so far, is that it is lacking. Up until that moment where he explained that, it was lacking focus. Now it's starting to come into focus, but it took us 2 minutes.
I am not repeating myself all the time in my videos, nor do I contradict myself if my train of thought is different and leads to different conclusions. It's because the topic and the parameters I use are also different. Revisiting the same topic can also be about different things depending.
He's explaining how his own opinions are relative and like how you should be taking his content through the lens of his own particular brand of doing things. He's explaining how to regard him relatively.
On the angle I approach it from. It doesn't make it wrong as long as it stays in that specific angle. This means that whatever I said about what is romance, why most anime are not about romance, and why most who like this not really romance anime stands true for everything and everyone who fulfill the criteria of what I am talking about. It doesn't include the entire universe. It wasn't about Greek legends. It wasn't about the one and only function of
You are literally explaining relativism. He's basically saying he agrees with it.
And it wasn't about so all you people who don't have a word to group you with can put your generalizations in that place you can't define and then jump off a place you can't explain.
Cursor? Go back. What the fuck was that?
This not really romance anime stands true for everything and everyone who fulfill the criteria of what I am talking about. It doesn't include the entire universe. It wasn't about Greek legends. It wasn't about the one and only function of dopamine. And it wasn't about so all you people who don't have a word to group you with can put your generalizations in that place you can't define and then jump off a place you can't explain. Being a mixture of music, drawing, and animation, anime is a form of art. But when it comes to the term art, what exactly is it and what is its purpose? If you're one of those idiotic relativists we are so full of today, you will just say everything can be art. And since everything is something, then there is no definition for it. This topic is not heading that way. In a very strict definition, anything that is created by sentient beings can be considered art because it
Interesting. The definition he's showing on screen says human activities, and he is saying sentient beings. What is the level on which you consider something sentient? Like, doesn't sentient just mean like it has a mind? Like, I think a cow is sentient, right? Or does sentient mean you have to be able to speak? Let's look up sentient, because I want to know this exactly. Able to perceive or feel things. Okay, yeah. A cow is sentient. So Snob is arguing that cows can make art, which I highly agree with.
Involves activities requiring imaginative or technical skill. The purpose of creation is the fulfillment of some sort of need. Human needs come in various forms, ranging from material things like food and water to immaterial things such as happiness and confidence. Audiovisual arts belong to the latter category, part of which is anime. When it comes to the high arts, two of the largest psychological effects they have on the audience is inflicting them with emotions and inspiring them to do certain things. Inflicting emotions has to do with empathy, where a creation manages to make the audience.
Just something about the use of the word inflicting and the way he really leans in on it. Like, I think he's doing it to be funny, but the fact that that is like a joke to him says a lot about him, I think. Like, I think he literally regards like being made to feel emotion as like gay. He's like, these gay tears are streaming down my face, you know, like. I'm watching an Anime Snob video.
Why?
I got paid to. It's pretty funny so far. What's up? I thought you would have gone to bed.
Who's hopping?
Oh, how is the hopping?
The one guy with reason to dislike Oppenheimer turned the government against him.
Oh.
And then all the scientists that liked Oppenheimer turned the government against him.
Oh, nice.
That's fine.
Mm.
It does not inspire confidence.
No, well, you know, what does?
Yeah, that's fair. Lincoln inspired confidence. I like that movie. It's probably chocolate cake.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that cake. Bird.
That's
Indeed.
me. Anyway, bye.
I love you. Have a nice one. Alright, I'll be making fun of that anime snob.
Are you done with your profile?
What are these gay feelings? This is too much romance. Get back to the action. This is supposed to be an analysis video, not a gay pornography.
Feel in a certain way. Inspiration builds on that to also motivate said people to take certain actions based on how they feel. When you have both, art becomes a very powerful thing that affects the lives of people. If you don't have both, then art is not working at its fullest. If a piece of art tries to be inspirational without being
Yeah, Gary, I'm with you. It's like he's trying to say, like, I'm not saying that truth is absolutely true. I'm just saying it's 99.9% true. And it's like, why is this an argument we need to have?
sensational, then it fails to be either. If it tries to be sensational and inspirational without a sense of morality, it becomes a sleazy propaganda. If it is sensational but not inspirational, then it simply exists to make you happy or sad just for the heck of it. It's when people treat art as nothing but entertainment, existing solely to make them feel stuff. Without knowing what to do with said feels, they become depressed. Something that is easily noticeable about modern art is that it tries to be far more sensational than inspirational. By constantly simplifying itself, it tries to inflict as many emotions as possible with the least amount of effort, often neglecting technical perfectionism. A big part of inspiration has to do with making you feel like you need to reach the creator's proficiency, something which is not that noticeable today when most of everything is stylized, cheap to make, and easy to replicate. The audience...
Okay, come the fuck on. This is not a fucking still from Legend, or sorry. This is not a still from Fist of the North Star. And this is a fucking tween in the middle of a fight scene. I know this is bait, but this is... The bait is too... What's that meme, you know, the guts bait meme? No, god damn it. Don't pretend you don't understand what I'm typing, Google, please. I hate when you do this. God damn it. Google Images has fucked itself so badly. I don't understand it. That thing was too big to be called bait. Too big, too thick, too heavy, and too rough. That's how I feel about this. This is too big of bait. Too thick, too heavy, too rough. I mean, even just Googling, like... Not the goddamn video game. Yeah, this is what the show looks like. Which is good. Looks great, you know. I'm sure it didn't look that way 100% of the time either. But, like... This is, by the way, one of the main characters in Fist of the North Star is a fucking lolly. Well, typing in that with lolly didn't get me that. Whatever. Google is fucking borked. I don't understand it. They've really fucked it up. Anyway.
When most of everything is stylized, cheap to make, and easy to replicate.
Is the thumbnail supposed to be a persona? It's my cow sona. Where do I... Hold on. I know I tweeted it with the illustrators at, so I should probably put that in like the description or something. Let's see. How long ago? There we go. Fizzy Plague Lad. Go ahead and put that in the description of this video. But yeah, this is the full size art. Anywho.
The audience today doesn't seek technical proficiency as it seeks cheap thrills, resulting to the most popular
I'm glad you like it, Jake. Space
anime
Pirate.
YouTubers being everything that makes anime fans look bad. The
I like it
majority
too.
has been brainwashed into considering lazy, grotesque, and shallow as just another form of art, which has lost any meaning because everything is relevant. As a result, everybody who wants to be popular is trying to be like this.
It's funny how much this looks like a StreamYard call or something. Like it for a second, I thought this was like a screen cap of some podcast, and then I remembered like podcasts did not look like this back then. This is just well, they said they did sometimes, I guess, but I don't think that's what this is.
Guys, not like me, which I actually like because it makes me feel special. But still, by being
How many of you even like remember or know who any of these people are, by the way? Like these were the biggest AniTubers at the time. Like it's so hard to give perspective on what AniTube was like when I was first blowing up there, but like circa, 2012, 2013, there wasn't a bunch of like edited analytical fucking anime content. Like Gigguk really was like the best, and Demolition D, obviously Demolition D was the best, but like Gigguk was the best known one. Demo came a little bit later and became like the standard. Like everyone who's good has ripped off Demolition D in the space. Everybody who's like a good anime, anybody who's good and funny has ripped off Demolition D, and anybody who's good and analytical has ripped off me. So like between Gigguk, Demo, and I, and all these vloggers copying the Anime Man, like that's where everybody just tried to be one of those people, but was typically much worse. Now we've gotten to a point where there's people who are much better versions of each of us, I think. You don't think Gigguk ripped off Demo? I didn't say that. I said that they both, you have Gigguk and Demo both. Well, rather I said Gigguk was first and then Demo. So Demo was more like the better version of what Gigguk was doing, like making funny meme anime videos. But like Gigguk was coming at it from like the, anime is trash and so am I, like kind of popular kid who likes anime on the side, like way of approaching it. Or like I don't know, geek who's trying to be cool. And then Demo was like cool guy who's not trying to be cool, guy who just is naturally cool and thinks that therefore people who are trying to be cool are lame kind of approach, so everybody loves him because he is in fact naturally cool. And so is the Anime Man. Like the Anime Man is another just like massively charismatic dude who like, yeah, he could just turn on a vlog and talk about anything because people wanted to see him talk. All these guys, not so much. Misty Crenexia blew up because he was talking about like top tens. Every video was like a top 10 of some kind of like sexy anime babes. He always had hot chicks on his thumbnails, hot chicks all behind him, For Neverworld was doing chapter by chapter Dragon Ball, same with this guy, Chibi Reviews. I think I don't even know who this motherfucker is, but like basically there just wasn't competition. All of these guys were able to have careers because there just was not competition to do any of this stuff. And I was mostly kind of targeting Misty because even though I didn't like hate him as a person, I hated that he was doing bad list videos because I'm obsessed with lists and I wanted there to be good anime lists. So I did all kinds of other stuff. I should have, honestly, if I really was smart, I would have zeroed in on just taking Misty Crenexia's spot and just making good anime lists because I would still be doing that now. It's like a career I could have had if I just did nothing but making lists. Back when that was the meta, and then just like claimed that and made that my domain, become the list master of YouTube, that would have been a great route for me because I still love doing lists. But I overcomplicated it. My mentality was I literally have to see everything that is a candidate to be on the list before I can make the list. I still don't feel like I've seen enough of everything to make the lists I would want to make as definitive as I would want to make them. So I should have just been a slightly better Misty and I would have been aces, but whatever. Everybody else did business better than me. Everybody who's done business on YouTube has done business better than me. I'm just good at creating stuff. I'm high quality. What can I say? I've just made good shit. Have I been able to sell it? No. but it's fine because one day I'll die and someone who's smart will figure out how to make money off of everything I did. And maybe someone will be inspired to make something good by that. Probably more likely all of my stuff will be spun in a way to like help an evil empire take over the world. Like I'll be the Bible of some fascists like takeover in 100 years when they like change all my, take everything out of context. Anyway, just me trying to read the future in my mind's eye.
Not like me, which I actually like because it makes me feel special. But still, by being addicted to sensationalism, you bring your standards to such lows that becomes emotions for the sake of emotions with
Snob also claimed in a podcast that my views were falling closer in line to his and there was not enough to disagree with me on. I have not heard that, but that's really funny. If he really said that, then maybe Snob and I should team up instead of trying to be enemies. But unfortunately, he just really hates queers, I think. Maybe he's just doing it as a bit because I threatened his life or whatever, but he goes so hard against the gay stuff. And I don't know if that's something that would play well. Like if the two of us, if we had like a Trisha Paytas, like if he was the Trisha Paytas to my Ethan Klein, do you think it would work? Do you think we could have a successful podcast?
no vision, no inspiration for something better. Anime are not just damn feels and effortless chapter reviews. Get over your fucking parts and be creative, goddammit.
Many people believe you should always separate the artist from the art if you want to properly experience any work of fiction. If you don't do that, your preconceptions of the artist...
Yellow plus Red says, I'd pay to see that. Well, hey, if a lot of people have the same sentiment, maybe we'll do it. You'd rather be team up with James than Snob. Me too, but I don't think me and James would fight like that. Like me and James wouldn't have a reason to scream at each other and get angry. Like the fact that Snob is so anti-queer could make it great content. Like if it really pissed off me and my fans and I really pissed off him and his fans, it could be a really fun proxy war for us all to care about instead of gay politics or whatever the fuck is happening in the world. Be a lot more fun than Israel-Palestine is what I'm trying to say.
will get in the way and blind your judgment. For example, when you watch Neon Genesis, you should be able to get its message without knowing about the psychological issues Hideaki Anno was going through during its production. Art should be able to speak to you without the name of the artist slapped on it. On the other hand, art is not...
Agudine, I don't think I will ever be in Trash Taste. I don't see why I would be. It's not really a goal of mine. I don't really want to live in Japan. Like, I understand. I don't like Japanese culture more than American culture, and especially not now that American culture is just being like taking so much influence from Japanese culture that like generations, the generations coming before, like after me, are all anime fans anyways, and they're just incorporating the best stuff about American culture and best stuff about Japanese culture together and making stuff that's for me because I influenced it. I told people what I thought was good, and then they started making that stuff, So as far as I'm concerned, like I created the America I want to live in, and I'm staying here because I want to keep affecting it. I want to keep making it the way I want it to be. I can't have an effect in Japan. I can't do anything to Japanese culture. I'd be a gaijin, I would never fit in. I would never be effective. There's certain things that are appealing to me about Japan, like that food is very cheap there. Right now, their economy is kind of shit, so I would have money, compared to other people. I would have money compared to here, even just by converting what I made online. So that would be cool. But that fluctuates. That's not always going to stay true. And also, Japanese culture is just very quiet and orderly. And like, while I think I would naturally kind of respect that and fall in line with it, it also just, I don't know if I would have space to express myself. I feel like I have to be too quiet where I am, like even right now, I'm trying to speak a little bit more quietly because I know there's people asleep in the house, but like, my instinct is to be loud. My instinct is to play loud music and to I like being at loud events, you know. You can't even jaywalk there. Yeah, I jaywalk constantly here, you know, but it's also the whole structure of the society is different. And I don't know what part of Japan would I go to also, you know. I shake my leg too much. Yeah, that would be off-putting to the Japanese, I'm sure. Lots of things about me would be off-putting, I think, but also like I would feel huge, you know, because like I'm like exactly the height that everything is built to in the United States for women. I mean, like I'm like the height of a tall American woman. I would be a gigantic Japanese woman, you know. So I don't know. I feel like I can do a lot of good work here in the US. So I enjoy being here. And again, anime is not by itself alluring enough to me. Anime and manga, and like the Japanese language is so fucking convoluted, and I have no interest in kanji. Another part of it is I love the English language. You know, I'm so engrossed in it. I use it so much. It's hard for I also like Japanese, and it's a lot of it's in my brain, and I use it to a certain extent, but I will never be able to exert the mastery over Japanese that I can over English. I'll always feel insecure about my Japanese, you know, even if I got pretty good at it. I would never feel like I could write like Nisio Isin in Japanese, you know, which I think I can do in English. So, you know, I just feel like I have a mission here in the United States, and I'm not trying to go to Japan. Like I could see visiting, I could see being a guest on Trash Taste, you know, if they wanted me. I think, again, it's not really a goal of mine. I'm not trying to go on like a bunch of podcasts. What I would like to do is start running convention panels. Like, so to get into, I mean, we're still kind of, well, currently we're doing that anime snob video deconstruction, but like apart from that, going through my personal history, I'm going to jump into my future a little bit, and what I want to be doing and what I'm trying to build toward is I want to be traveling all the time and pretty much only ever in the woods or at a convention. If I can swing this, if I could have my ultimate lifestyle, the conclusion I've come to is I either want to be hiking around in the woods. You know how my legs won't stop shaking? You know, I keep shaking. It's because if I could, I'd just be walking all the time. I would always be on the move. I know this comes from, it's genetic. It's definitely from my dad. My dad bikes like 100 miles almost every day. You know, average 50 miles, I'll say. He averages 50 miles a day bike riding. He can't stop moving. He has to ride as fast as possible. He won't even ride with other people because they won't ride as fast as he will. You know, he's riding 20 plus miles an hour every day, 50 miles a day. I've got that sense of need for movement inside of me. I like being in a car because I like the feeling that I'm just moving, you know, and so I don't feel like I have to do anything else because at least I'm moving, you know. You've all seen me pace around in my other videos, you know, any of the walk and talk videos. I'm like fucking burning holes in the ground, pacing back and forth at the park. So I like being on the move. I don't feel at home anywhere because I've moved so much throughout my life. You know, I kind of feel at home in Hampton Roads, but not in a good way, where I feel like this is the trap. You know, like this is not a good place to live. This is a place you should be trying to get out of. Like, I feel lucky that I'm not stuck here, you know, that like my parents worked hard so I could have the opportunity to get the fuck out of here, you know? And even still, I've found myself trapped back here again somehow. So, yeah, sorry, I started reading the chat and got a little distracted from what I'm talking about because y'all are talking about other shit. Let's just continue this video for now.
Made on its own. People make it based on their vision of how they wanted something to be like. Without that something, there is no context for why it was made in the first place. Knowing the time and place of when something was created helps us to understand why it was made the way it did. To put it in a different way, everything is a product of its time, and trying to see it outside the era it was made in blinds us from understanding the cultural impact it had or the circumstances under which it was created. Some say this is not a bad thing. Being completely unaware of who, when, and where allows you to evaluate art based solely on your personal criteria. Without context, you are forced to reach to your own conclusions, which can be completely different from the intentions of the artist. This is known as the death of the author effect. With this mindset, nothing has a global meaning. It can be different for every individual. This in effect makes art an abstract concept. It doesn't mean something specific on its own. You are the one who adds meaning and content to it. It is not trying to tell you a message, but rather to motivate you into finding a message. It's all up to personal interpretation, also known as relativism. I find this way of thinking to be a very autistic concept. Despite being social creatures, personal experiences cannot be shared.
Hold on, you find something to be a very autistic concept, Snob? A little bit of pot calling the kettle black here.
Others this way. Your knowledge, wisdom, and emotions mean something completely different for everyone else. Your creations are expressions of your psyche, but nobody's trying to understand your point of view because they are busy finding messages based on their own point of view. So why bother sharing anything in the first place? This is why our world is described as postmodern. Everything is meta. It begins in a vague way, and through arbitrary thinking, it gets as many explanations as there are sentient people on Earth. Nothing is considered educational as much as an excuse for self-indulgence. This is the essence of pretentious overthinking. You pretend to know what you're talking about.
I do think this comic is pretty funny.
But when in reality, your train of thought starts from and ends in completely random locations.
The light novel by Digibro, written in roughly 24 hours and consists of random combination of zany garbage. Every sentence is self-aware, played to the tropes and memes of anime, light novels, and the general zeitgeist of internet culture, blended up and regurgitated onto the page. The true protagonist of this train wreck is the author. He manages to get lost in his own mind. Digi rambling on about character tropes, moving between philosophical meta-humor to self-indulgent sex fantasies, to analyzing and recontextualizing his own fiction and feelings only a few sentences after writing them.
I am broken to fiction.
It is so raw with creative energy that it inspires people whom are writing their own light novels or stories tied into Digis. There's even a group known as A2 Pick.
Most of this was a joke and a meme, and none of these people actually really did anything.
Trying to create an anime of the whole book. The deranged fever dreams of a madman are interesting. This is definitely the book for you. No further questions needed.
That's really funny that I ended up being the example. I mean, the book was made as a joke about, in case anybody doesn't understand the context of that book, since Snob was, okay, hold on, backing up for a second about all the stuff he just said before I let all of that go out of my mind. So it's interesting because he's not really like trying to dispute that death of the author is like true or that like people are coming up with their own interpretations. He just thinks that sucks. He just thinks, he wishes there was a global interpretation. And I don't hate that opinion. I don't hate it because and this is something that I liked Endless Jess's take on death of the author, which is to tell the author that they are dead is tremendously disrespectful to the author. That it's such a like, it's a mentality towards art that you, the audience, are all that matters, and who gives a fuck who made it, who gives a fuck about whatever they were trying to accomplish. It's all about me. It's just a very like narcissistic way to approach art, to be like, well, I don't even care what they were going for, you know. I just care about what I got out of it. You know, when you say it like that, because it seems a little selfish, right? And it's like, as an artist, you're really like hoping to communicate something particular to people, and you're putting all this thought and effort into it, you know. And like for people to say, well, you know, all that thought and effort you put in, I don't care, you know, I just care about what I feel. It's like, well, I hope you feel good then, you know, damn. Like, so, you know, I get, I think that's misunderstanding death the author is more that the author's interpretation is valid, but it's not the ultimate truth. Well, and that's so, again, Snob is not saying that the death of the author is not like true. He's just saying he doesn't like it. He doesn't like the approach that people take when they say, fuck the author, I'm just doing my take. Like, the point of the concept of death of the author is not to give you permission to do that. You're right. Like, but Snob's not misunderstanding death of the author. He's mad at other people who are using it as a bludgeon. He's mad at people who are saying, oh, well, death of the author. So, you know, which happens. It does happen. I know it sounds like a stupid straw man, but you got to remember that Anime Snob is a guy who argues with people on my anime list. He is a guy who is deep in the trenches of arguing with autistic people about anime on the internet. So I absolutely believe he's encountering people who are dropping just these like head-ass wacky interpretations of stories. And then when they get called out on how their interpretation doesn't make sense, especially when you consider the author's intent, they go, well, author intent doesn't matter because death of the author. And it's like, well, that's not an interesting conversation. You know, I think it's way more interesting to indeed analyze what the author intended. And I think obviously my work has been heavily dedicated to trying to figure out author intent. I'm looking for the author's intent. That's what I'm reading it for. I'm trying to understand what they're trying to tell me. I want to come to the art and feel like whatever this author wanted me to feel, I felt it. And if I don't feel it, I don't get mad at the author. I just assume it's not for me. You know, like I think, okay, well, maybe somebody else will understand this, but I don't, you know? But it's, you know, I am also capable of sometimes recognizing when I think they are trying to say something and they're just failing. You know, oftentimes they're just trying to say, look at this cool shit. And I'm going, that shit's not that cool. You know, like that's what a lot of my analysis comes down to, like the whole Gate thing, you know, like Gate is a show that's trying to show me something cool and it's just not. It's not cool. It's conceptually cool. It sounds cool on paper. In action, it's not cool, you know? And that's not a problem of the author's intent. It's a problem of execution. And that's what I'm usually put off by is execution. It's not that the author's intent was wrong. It's that they did it wrongly. And even if their intent was something kind of like malicious or weird, that can still be interesting. You know, that can still make a good product or something that you can learn from. But you know, being able to hate something because the author's intent was bad is also another interesting lens. I think that's more Snob's lens. I think he's more like, you know, you could have made anything and you made this, and therefore fuck you, you know, is like, that's kind of the mentality towards this book that I created, right? The one that he's criticizing here. Now, for the sake of authorial intent and context, which I agree is an interesting way to look at stories, this book was a joke about Eromanga Sensei, because Eromanga Sensei is a terrible, terrible, terrible anime about terrible, terrible, terrible light novel authors. And Nate and I were doing an episodic breakdown of the show, criticizing it. And there's one episode where the main character literally writes a light novel in a fucking day. And like, I wanted to see if I could do that. Like, I wanted to see how realistic, like physically, how realistic is that? Like, can you actually pen a light novel's worth of words in a day? And in order to accomplish that, I don't have context of the story, this character is a seasoned light novel author deep into their story who knows exactly what their story is. And so I can kind of understand how they wrote it in a day, which Kusomega Volume 1 was written in a day. It's only like half, maybe a quarter the length of a full light novel, but it is competent and good. It doesn't have all the problems this thing has because it was planned. You know, there was some level of forethought going into it. It wasn't, can I write 40,000 words in 24 hours? That was what the point of this book was. Like, literally, is this possible? And what will what will come out of it? Like, will my book be better than Eromanga Sensei? And like, whether or not you think that a book like this is interesting, I think it's certainly more interesting than Eromanga Sensei. I think even Snob would agree that being able to say this much about the book makes it more interesting than Eromanga Sensei. That's a very low bar to clear. That's all I was trying to do with it. It was one day of my life, one day of my life to sit down and write something more interesting than Eromanga Sensei, and I think I succeeded. And it unlocked my ability to write really fast, but I've slowed down to take my time with it more. Like Sunops is, I probably spent 2 afternoons writing the first chapter, but that first chapter is only like 3,000 words. It's nowhere near the level of writing those books in a day because I wanted it to be good and make sense and be good in a modernist, traditional way. It is very much a modernist story compared to the postmodernism I've been giving you in the past. So maybe this is what Snob means when he says that we're getting too close to seeing things the same way. But I don't think I've ever been primarily a postmodernist writer or fan. I've always been into boogie pop. Stuff that is deliberately or middlebrow or unibrow, like high concept, low concept marriage. That's my thing. I like stuff that is aware of how to be good and choosing to use those skills to tell something base, to communicate something everyone understands. Because most of the high-minded ideas are like gay and flaunty and like people are acting like they're saying something really interesting when they're not, like if the art can't communicate on the basic human level, it's probably not that interesting. And like Legend of Galactic Heroes is so good because it does do both. It simultaneously has, all the artsy music and shit and the stuffy kind of political dialogue. But it also has like, can I abandon a friend? Alcohol's been humanity's friend for centuries, and it has like guys murdering each other with axes, and doing crazy ops. And it's got comedy and it's got heart. It's like The Wire of anime, like that perfect cross section of it's super smart, but also it is allowed to be dumb,
Few sentences after writing them. It is so raw with creative energy that it inspires people whom are writing their own light novels or stories tied to it.
Relativism strikes again as the voice actor of Samurai Jack defends this terrible finale by essentially saying bullshit like, art was made for the sake of art. The original creator got the ending he always wanted, and thus there is no reason for anyone to complain. Here are the wonderful conclusions one can make out of this statement. Number 1. If art is made for art's sake, then the voice actor is a fucking relativist. Thus whatever he says has no value because everything to him is relevant. Number 2. If the original creator got the ending he always wanted, means he was never a good writer since time resets are the ultimate fuck you to storytelling.
Hold on, I'm trying to actually read this thing because what he's saying doesn't seem to be addressing what's written here. This is about Phil Lamar. Lamar was a guest on Namek vs. Saiyan podcast as discovered by The Hollywood Reporter, where he was asked about the negative reaction some fans gave. Lamar said the show never belonged to fans or critics. All that mattered, he argued, was that creator Genndy Tartakovsky got the ending he had been waiting more than a decade for. Last time I checked, you didn't write it or create it or draw it, so I don't know why it would be exactly what you wanted, he said, addressing fans or critics. It's what Genndy wanted. You wouldn't say, I think the Mona Lisa would be better if she just smiled. Come on, Da Vinci, lighten up. Go in and redo it. Lamar, who voices Jack, added that he believed the series was a work of art and was immensely proud to be a part of it. I mean, I think this is a dumb way to respond to fans of the show who didn't like the ending. I get what he's trying to say. He's trying to say, like, how dare you think that you're smarter than Genndy, who I worship as like this god of animation, and he is. But there's tactful ways to approach telling the audience that they should reconsider their stance,
Sake, then the voice actor is a fucking relativist. Thus whatever he says has no value because everything to him is relevant. Number 2, if the original creator got the ending he always wanted, means he was never a good writer since time resets are the ultimate fuck you to storytelling. Number 3, if you can't judge something unless you are part of its creation, then what's the point of sharing said creation?
Yeah, see, that was where he jumped over my head because I don't even fucking know what show they're talking about. Is this about Symbionic Titan? No, it's about Samurai Jack. Okay, right, because he voices Jack. Okay. So this is about not people not liking the ending of Samurai Jack. Did he say that and I missed it?
The question.
Relativism strikes again as the voice actor of Samurai Jack defends this terrible finale by essentially saying bullshit.
The way he said this terrible finale, this was like too much information for me to take in all at once.
Like, art was made for the sake of art. The original creator got the ending he always wanted, and thus there is no reason for anyone to complain. Here are the wonderful conclusions one can make out of this statement. Number one.
Okay, so his argument here is that you can be in favor of the author but still have a relativist view on what is good because you're saying that the author was smarter than the audience. But ultimately, consensus is the closest thing that we have to any kind of conclusion. So if you're trying to go against consensus, you're basically arguing in the face of logic. I don't agree with this because I think, 50,000 screaming fans can be fucking morons. I think it's hard to know in the moment how things are going to be taken later, right? Like people hated the end of Evangelion when it came out, but now it's considered one of the greatest endings ever. It's still hotly disputed. It's still controversial, but that controversy is a good thing. Like that controversy is part of why it's interesting. It's the kind of ending where people like me have gone back and forth on whether we think it's good or not. Sometimes I think it rules. Sometimes I think it sucks. The TV show ending, I mean, not the movie, which also people feel that way about. I think it's legendary, but it's understandable to like hate it or think it's bad. I think sometimes I guess what I'm trying to say is sometimes making something that is not going to be consensus beloved is the more important and more effective decision to make. And maybe that's what Lamar is trying to say, but his choice of words is terrible. His choice of how he's trying to defend this is not good.
One, if art as an novel is smiling, said they feel matters, why share it with others when you don't care what they have to say about it?
I agree with that. If you're making a product that is meant for wide consumption, but like, it's not a matter of not caring what they have to say about it. It doesn't necessarily have to be likable. Like it doesn't, I would say what Phil Lamar should have said is like, you're not supposed to like it. It's supposed to hurt, or you're supposed to be upset or something like that. Like whatever emotion you felt, that's the emotion you were supposed to feel. That would be the right way to say what he's trying to say.
Number 4, Samurai Jack was not made for free distribution and will not go away without trying to make some profit. The consumers...
It was so horrible that Grundy apologized for it and made a game with an alt ending. The ending of Samurai Jack was so bad. I didn't know. I have not seen the ending of Samurai Jack, so I don't have an opinion about it. I skipped forward 20 seconds while I was skipping over all the stuff.
Art was made for the sake of art. The original creator got full then the voice actor is a fucking relic of the distribution and will not go away without trying to make some profit. The consumers are entitled to judge a product many are going to pay money for. And number 5, did any of these guys expect a show that was...
Yeah, but you didn't have to pay money for Samurai Jack. Like, this, not liking the ending will certainly affect whether you spend money on it going forward. And that is probably why it had to be apologized for. Like, if it really sucked and everyone hated it, they can't just the people who own the property of Samurai Jack are going to be like, yeah, can you do something about that? Like, we were hoping that your show was going to sell like 2 billion t-shirts and no one's buying the product because they hate the ending. Yeah, that he's right that, there are people Genndy has to answer to, when he fucks over the fans, because it's not just his show, actually, Phil. He might be the lead decision maker. That doesn't mean that, if he leads it to a place where it hurts the franchise, that hurts everybody working under him and over him. He has to be responsible.
Being overhyped for a dozen years by thousands of people to not cause some sort of a reaction, the anticipation alone raised the bar 1,000,000 times.
Or, again, responsible about metering the reaction. Like, you can't just accuse people of being wrong. You have to convince them they were wrong.
Higher than it would have with any other show that had no fan base or history behind it. How is it possible to not have a backlash when you state bullshit like the show is not made for the fans, and they have no right to judge it, although it was part of their favorites for a dozen years? What kind of an asshole would demand such a thing from its own fan base? And thus, plebs and plebettes, I prove to you how not only Samurai Jack was never a good series, but now even the people who made it were never good either. Got the ending he wanted all along. I told you would be a reset, and you didn't listen. Tasteless casuals. Time reset. Time reset. Time reset.
Yeah, I mean, endings are hard. Legend of Galactic Heroes had a really good ending. Oh, well, okay, we made it through that. I have to poop, so I'm going to go do that, and I guess I'll play some more of my music. So we were somewhere in this. I was like explaining this stuff. I'll play. Yeah, this one's got my homies on it. Dima Fox Paws, being Dima
Down
Fox
here in
Paws.
Texas,
Play guitar on this.
Queer around. Oh, turns in public like the dicks they run the town. But I'll tell you what, send them on back to pay. Oh, way out down in Florida, there's some mean old bitches around. They can tell you what dick goes in your mouth and where it's found. I gotta tell these fuckers they don't know me and my kind. When you make it up through me, yeah. When you make it up through here, we'll lead the charge and run the fires back down throughout the year. They gonna regret all the things they said to us and all the nasty looks. I was born in the flood. My name was Mud. Don't say I'm a dud. I'll hit ya, bud. I was born inside a house. My name was Champ. Some say that I'm a tramp. Oh God, this towel is damp. Agent Venom, oh, he was dead religion, how's it up? Jesus, ideals, that's now myth, that's now real. Now it is just me, I mean, so I've heard what they gotta do without about me. There's just red wine, there's a big head, but I can do, I can do, you and me. That was Father John Misty live. Oh, brand new song from Father John Misty, and we love him here at
We sure do love Father John Misty here at Alamo Radio, your Virginia Beach's only independent radio NPR station. I'm here tonight on All Things Considered with Herbert Hale, the author of his new book. Why don't you explain it, Herbert?
Hello there, Mr. Jiff.
It's good to have you
It's
here.
me, Herbert Hale, into the studio again. Just talking about my new book, which is about the sounds of slapping my face against an acoustic guitar.
Yeah, I heard that was what it was about. Did this come from research or?
Oh, I can display for you right now exactly where it came from, the technique I've developed.
Okay, can you show it to the audience who's watching? Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
For those of you who aren't
Not quite the sound you
for those of
expect it
you
to make, is it?
For those of you tuning in, this is some pretty remarkable stuff. Herbert Hale, author of the new book, The
Goose
Sounds
the
of My Face. The Sounds of My Face hitting against an acoustic guitar. Just hit his face against an acoustic guitar. Isn't that crazy?
Yes, it's quite violent, as you'll find.
All right. Well, Herbert, it's been great, but we've got to go to a song break.
Yes,
Yeah,
understandable.
this is a new one from a Swedish band called and it's called Love Fuck.
Love fuck in my truck. Dead. Love fuck. My girlfriend already dead. Love fuck. I stabbed her in the fucking throat. Love fuck. I'm gonna play the brown note. Love fuck in my truck.
We'll always have a chance to elect a woman, but Bernie Sanders is one of a kind. We'll always have a chance to elect a woman, but Bernie's the best candidate you will find. So I'm gonna vote for Bernie Sanders. I'm gonna vote for him today. He's gonna make gay marriage legal. Then he's gonna turn me gay. Then gonna vote for Bernie Sanders. Gonna vote for my mouth and his dick. He's only 73 years old, so he won't get off that quick. Vote for Bernie Sanders if you wanna suck his I'm sorry that I'm laughing because it's a very serious topic for me. I just thought of something really funny. And the thing I thought of was the finale of Seinfeld, which I think is a really funny show. It's got jokes, it's got laughs, everybody's having fun. I like Seinfeld cause it's the only comedy built on human frailty. What's that got to do with Adam and Steve? Bernie Sanders is getting gay married, everybody's going blind. While the masturbating too, the thought of getting fucked in the rump by Bernie. This is kind of petered out. I don't know what I'm doing. That was great. Sanders.
You didn't hear my fart. That's why they call it silent but deadly. My one, it smells real bad. You'll find out very soon. You'll think it's you because he who smelled
I'm drowning in blood tonight. I'm drowning in blood tonight. I'm drowning in blood tonight. Blood tonight. I'm drowning in blood tonight. If it looks like blood, it tastes like blood, then it's probably blood. I'm telling you, blood, it's blood tonight. I'm drowning in blood tonight. If it looks like blood and it tastes like blood, then it's probably blood. I'm telling you, I'm drowning in blood tonight. Blood tonight. There's so much blood, it's under my hood of my car. I'm drowning in blood. There's a lot of blood. When they find me, they wanna take me to jail. They take me to jail. Cause I'm drowning in blood tonight. There's a lot of blood. A lot of blood. That's too much blood. When you get on that blood, from the blood bank. When you get on that blood, from the blood bank. When you find all that blood, on the hood of my car. There's a pound of blood. I got more blood. Thank you all for listening to the album. We here at Trial of the Golden Witch appreciate your monthly sponsorship of a nickel a day. When you drive home tonight, drive sober or get pulled over. I'm gonna vote for Bernie Sanders. Gonna vote for Bernie Sanders. Whoa, oh, 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 oh. Bernie Sanders got my vote. I'm gonna vote for Bernie Sanders. Gonna vote for Bernie Sanders. Whoa, oh, 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 oh. Bernie Sanders got my vote.
Hey, 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 hey. Hey, 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 hello, 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 hello. I know this is sudden, but I'm going to go ahead and end this stream because my stomach hurts a lot. I took some Tums, but I really need to lay down. I will get to that other, Aura Luna, remind me about that other super chat request tomorrow. Oh, there's another one. Gary always with $5 for Jacob Gellier. Every Zelda is the darkest Zelda, part of that video. All right, I'll do that tomorrow too. I can barely remain standing here because my stomach hurts a lot. So, okay. See you all tomorrow. Bye.